I stood on the old watchtower, looking down at Winterfell City, my new domain. Cracked dry land outside, crooked wooden houses inside, and a crumbling castle in the center. This was supposed to be my territory as a lord, but it looked worse than a poor village. Anna, my maid with orange hair and pale blue eyes, stood next to me looking upset. She said I deserved better. I was the son of a marquis, after all. She was right, in a way. But my father, the famous Thunder Marquis of the Ayla Kingdom, never wanted me around. See, I'm not really from this world. My mind comes from the 21st century. I was reborn here, and I had ideas. Use magic to improve farming, treat peasants better so they'd work harder, build smarter tools. But every time I brought these up, my father shut me down with cold anger. He said magic was for killing enemies, not growing crops. He said commoners only needed whips and bread. He called my ideas a disgrace to noble honor. With my rebellious thinking and average talent, I was nothing but a stain on the family name. So on my 18th birthday, they threw me out and sent me to this forgotten border town to be its lord. I hugged Anna and told her it wasn't so bad. At least here, we were free. Then I turned to my guard captain, Char, and asked what he'd found out about the previous lord. The news was worse than I expected. That old bastard didn't just take the treasury and food. He grabbed every weapon and piece of armor from the military warehouse, too. He even collected 6 months of the people's food in advance as a fake, prepaid tax. He wasn't just robbing the place. He was destroying it and leaving me to take the blame. I went to the Lord's Hall, where 2 nervous officials were waiting. Barry, the chubby civil administrator, told me there were 5,456 registered citizens with 0 grain and 0 money left. Hawk, the thin military officer, reported that out of 300 soldiers on paper, only about 100 could still fight, mostly untrained commoners with a handful of low-level warriors and junk weapons. He said even a small bandit gang could break through our defenses. Adding my 30 personal guards, I had fewer than 200 fighters total. Empty storerooms, a broken army, hopeless people, and threats from the monster forest to the north and the Orc Empire to the west. A complete dead end. But I stood up calmly and dismissed them. After they left, I told Char to pick 5 of our best guards, grab bows and weapons, and come with me to scout the monster forest. Anna grabbed my arm, begging me not to go to the monster forest. Char also offered to scout it himself. But I refused. I needed to see with my own eyes what threats we were dealing with. I told them not to worry. The forest edge would have only Tier 1 or Tier 2 monsters, and between Char as a mid-level warrior and the rest of us as beginners, we could handle it. Half an hour later, I set out with Char and 2 other guards toward the forest. We left our horses at the edge and moved carefully through the trees on foot. I kept my voice low. Stay alert. We're here to observe. If we run into a Tier 2 monster, we retreat immediately. A rustling came from nearby bushes. Everyone froze. Then a muscular goat with curved horns stepped out, a Tier 1 wind antelope. I grabbed my bow, held my breath, aimed, and shot. The arrow hit its neck perfectly. It struggled for a moment and dropped. We'd been walking for a while, so I decided to stop for lunch. We found a nearby cave, set up a simple rack, and started roasting the antelope. Char turned the meat while I pulled out a small leather pouch of spice powder, special plants I'd had Anna collect based on my memories from my past life. They worked like cumin and chili pepper. The moment the spices hit the golden brown meat, an incredible smell filled the air. Even Char, who'd tasted my cooking before, couldn't resist. I felt a bit proud. This was the power of Eastern cooking. Just a little seasoning made all the difference. What none of us realized was that the smell had drifted deep into the cave. Somewhere in the darkness, something that had been sleeping for centuries stirred. A pair of golden slit pupils snapped open, and a massive nose sniffed the air. We were still enjoying the meal, crispy outside, tender inside, the spices making it unbelievably good, when the ground started shaking. At first we thought we imagined it, but the tremors came again and again, stronger each time, like an earthquake. Char gripped his weapon and scanned the area. Birds screamed into the sky. Wild animals stampeded out of the forest in a panic, as if fleeing from something terrifying. Full alert, Char barked. The 2 guards grabbed their weapons and surrounded me. Every face was grim. These were experienced fighters. They knew what this kind of chaos meant. Then a deafening roar came from the sky, along with a crushing pressure that squeezed our chests and made it hard to breathe. The sound grew closer, followed by a thunderous impact and violent shaking. Then, silence. A silence that felt even more terrifying than the noise. A head appeared at the cave entrance. It was bigger than the opening itself, covered in fine scales, with two massive horns. A single golden eye, half as tall as a man, stared at us without any emotion. Every hair on my body stood up. A cold wave of terror shot through me from my feet to my skull, like I was staring at death itself. The two guards collapsed to the ground, dropping their weapons. Only Charm managed to stay standing, gripping his sword, though his hands shook violently. A dragon, he choked out. An adult dragon, at least peak tier 4. Only a sword saint or archmage could fight one. Run, but running from a dragon was pointless. The four of us couldn't survive a single strike from it. I forced myself to stay calm and looked more carefully at the situation. Then I noticed something strange about that golden eye. It seemed to be looking at us, but the center of its gaze wasn't actually on us. It was looking at the roasted meat. A crazy idea popped into my head. Could it be that this dragon, a creature at the top of the food chain, came here because of the smell of our roasted meat? Dragons are proud and powerful, with almost no natural enemies. They never show up at the outer edge of the monster forest. I'd read plenty of records about dragons in the Ayla Kingdom, and not once in the last few hundred years had anyone reported seeing one this close to the border. I picked up a roasted leg of meat and slowly walked toward the massive dragon head. Char panicked and yelled at me to stop, but I waved him off and kept going. Sure enough, as I moved, that giant golden eye followed. Not me, but the meat in my hand. When I stepped outside the cave, I finally saw the dragon's full body. It was like a moving mountain, stretching across the entire clearing. Silver scales reflected cold metallic light, with faint dark gold streaks flowing across them. Its folded wings alone blocked half the sky. Next to this thing, humans were nothing. My heart nearly stopped, but I forced down the terror and tossed the meat forward. The dragon's jaws snapped open and swallowed it in one bite. Then it paused. Its huge eyes showed a flicker of confusion, like it was tasting something this good for the very first time. I relaxed a little, put on my friendliest smile, and said carefully, "Hey there, big guy. We've got more roasted meat. Want some?" The dragon thought about it for less than half a second and nodded. Actually nodded, like a person. Then it tried to shove its massive head into the cave to get at the rest. The whole cave shook, cracks spread across the entrance, and rocks started falling. I nearly had a heart attack. If the cave collapsed, we'd all be buried alive. "Stop, stop. It'll cave in. We'll bring the food out to you." The dragon stopped. It seemed to realize its size was a problem. Then something unbelievable happened. A blinding golden light burst from the dragon's body, forcing us all to shut our eyes. When I opened them again, the enormous dragon was gone. In its place stood a tiny girl, barely 4.5 feet tall. She had long pink hair falling loosely behind her, porcelain white skin, delicate doll-like features, and a strange little dress. A pair of round golden eyes, the same gold as the dragon's, stared at me with pure curiosity. My brain went completely blank. Char and the other guards looked like their eyes were about to pop out of their heads. A city-destroying dragon just turned into a little girl? Nothing in any record I'd ever read mentioned dragons could take human form. What kind of dragon was this? Before I could process any of it, the girl puffed up her cheeks, sniffed the air hard, locked her eyes on the last piece of roasting meat, pointed at it with a small pale finger, and said in a soft but commanding voice, "Meat. I want meat." That cute little voice was the complete opposite of the terrifying beast from moments ago. I stepped aside and led her to the fire. She trotted behind me on her short legs, grabbed the roasted leg right off the rack, not bothered by the flames at all, and started chomping. She bit through solid bone like it was tofu. An entire wind antelope, bigger than her own body, disappeared in minutes. Her little face was covered in grease, her eyes squeezed into happy crescents. And somehow her stomach stayed completely flat. She licked her fingers, looked up at me with those golden eyes, and said, "Meat. I want more. Lots and lots of yummy meat." My fear was completely gone by now, replaced by a very strange feeling. This dragon was nothing like the legends, proud, cold, looking down on all living things. This one seemed more like a not very bright, adorable glutton who wasn't hard to get along with at all. a food-loving creature that seemed a bit simple but had unimaginable power. A bold idea hit me. If I could somehow get this dragon to come back to Winterfell City with me, then all my problems, the crisis, the orc empire, everything, wouldn't matter anymore. I let my tension melt away and put on my warmest smile. No problem. Of course. I'll make you even more delicious food right away. I turned to Char and ordered him to take the guards hunting for bigger game nearby. Once they left, I sat down in front of the pink-haired girl with my best friendly uncle face. Miss Dragon, my name is Lynn Austin. I'm the Lord of Winterfell City nearby. What should I call you? She tilted her head, licked some grease from the corner of her mouth, and mumbled, I'm Mia. Mia, that's a lovely name. Have you always lived in this forest? She pointed toward the deep woods. I was sleeping in there. If that roasted meat hadn't smelled so good, I'd still be asleep. Just as I thought. The smell brought her here. This dragon looked fierce, but had the mind of a child. Maybe I really could talk her into coming to Winterfell City. Sorry about waking you up from your nap, I said politely, then shifted the conversation. But hey, where are your parents? Aren't they with you? I needed to check this carefully. If Mia's family was nearby, my plan would have to stop immediately. 3 adult dragons showing up would be a disaster. Probably only the royal capital could survive that. When I mentioned her parents, Mia's little face turned sad. She shook her head and said quietly, they went somewhere. They said I could go find them when I grew up. But I did grow up, and I still don't know where they are. I felt bad for her, but I also couldn't help feeling relieved. She was alone. My plan could work. You must be pretty lonely then. And I bet it's been a long time since you ate anything this good. That hit the bullseye. Her eyes lit up, and she nodded her head hard. Yeah, the stuff in the forest is terrible, raw and smelly. Nothing like what you just made. If the food was good, I wouldn't have gone to sleep for so long. I smiled even wider and went in for the pitch. Well, you're in luck. Roasted meat is just the beginning. I can make hot pot, grilled fish, stir-fried pork, mapo tofu, braised pork belly. Hundreds of different dishes, all amazing. With every new food name I dropped, Mia's eyes grew bigger and she was practically drooling. I stood up and looked at her with warm, sincere eyes. Mia, this forest is boring. No good food. No comfortable place to sleep. Nothing to do. Why not come to Winterfell City with me? There's a warm bed, fun things to see, and most importantly, you'd eat something different every single day. She hesitated. I could see the struggle in her golden eyes. The food sounded incredible, but something deep in her dragon instincts was telling her not to trust a stranger, even one who could cook. But humans are dangerous, she mumbled, pouting. My parents told me to be careful. They said humans are tricky. I held back a laugh. Pushing too hard would only make her suspicious. With a simple foodie like her, patience would work better. So I just sat down and started chatting with her like we were old friends. That's fine. We're just talking, right? You know my name. I know yours. We're already friends. By the way, how long were you asleep? She tilted her head and thought hard. A really long time, I think. There used to be a big mountain over there before I went to sleep. Now it's gone. She made little gestures with her hands as she talked, looking unbelievably cute. But my mind was racing. The kingdom's records had no mention of a mountain here, not in the last few hundred years at least. This innocent-looking girl was an ancient being far older than anyone could guess. While we chatted, Char and the guards returned carrying a stunned ground pig, a big yak, and several gray rabbits. I jumped up and started giving orders. Char, butcher the pig into big chunks, skewer the rabbits. Hurry, our new friend is hungry. Mia watched the guards work with wide eyes, fascinated by how they turned raw animals into something that smelled so amazing. Once I sprinkled on my special spices again, she sat up straight, eyes glowing, throat making loud gulping sounds. Not an ounce of dragon dignity anywhere. She devoured everything. Mountains of meat, gone in minutes. I sat next to her eating a rabbit skewer, chatting about funny things in the forest like we'd known each other for years. My guards watched us with their jaws hanging open. They couldn't forget that terrifying dragon head and those golden eyes from earlier. This was a real dragon. One breath could wipe a small city off the map. And here I was joking around with her like it was nothing. They didn't know that my soul came from another world, where taming dragons, making deals with demon lords, and chatting with gods happened in every anime, game, and novel. I simply didn't have the instinctive terror that people in this world felt toward dragons. To me, Mia was an intelligent being I could communicate with. And as long as communication was possible, anything was possible. Plus, she was adorable. After she finished, Mia let out a satisfied burp with a big happy smile. I made my move again, keeping my voice gentle. That was just basic roasted meat, Mia. Back in Winterfell City, there's so much more. I had Anna make braised pork belly today. It melts in your mouth, way better than this. Why not come take a look? If you don't like it or get bored, you can leave anytime. Mia tilted her head, already drooling just from my description. Whatever warning her parents gave her about not trusting humans, she threw it right out the window. In her mind, I gave her good food and chatted with her like a friend, so I wasn't a stranger anymore. She jumped up, ran over, grabbed my hand, and looked up at me with those big golden eyes full of excitement. What's braised pork belly? It sounds so good. Let's go right now. I was screaming with joy inside, but kept my calm, friendly smile. Then let's hurry. It needs special preparation, and if we're too late, we might miss it. I gave Char a look, and everyone immediately understood. We packed up fast. The leftover game didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was getting this dragon back to Winterfell City. We made it back to where we'd left the horses, but there was a problem. The moment Mia appeared, every horse collapsed in terror, whimpering and shaking on the ground. Even though Mia had pulled in her aura completely, the pressure of a top-level predator was just too much for ordinary animals. Riding back was out of the question. I told Char to take the guards and head back first while I walked with Mia. Char refused immediately. He said it was too dangerous to leave me alone in the wild. I pointed at Mia, who was innocently poking a collapsed horse with her finger. Char, think about it. With Mia next to me, if something still manages to hurt me, what difference would you three make? He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at me, then at the adorable little girl who was actually a massive dragon, and his face went through about 5 different expressions. He couldn't argue with that logic. He gave a bitter smile and accepted the order, promising to have everything ready when I arrived, including telling Anna to start on the braised pork belly. After they rode off, I took Mia's small hand, and we started walking toward the city. It felt peaceful, like a big brother taking his little sister for a stroll. Then I realized a serious problem. The monster forest was dozens of kilometers from Winterfell City. With my low-level warrior body, walking the whole way might take until well after dark. Mia, at this pace, we won't get back until very late. Her eyes went wide and her lips pushed into a pout. Late meant late braised pork belly. Absolutely unacceptable. She shook my hand and immediately offered a solution. I know. I'll change back into dragon form, grab you with my claws, and fly us there in a flash. She waved her little arms around, mimicking flight. No way, I said instantly. A terrifying dragon landing in the middle of Winterfell City would cause a panic worse than an orc invasion. To most common people, dragons meant natural disaster. Nobody would believe a dragon could peacefully coexist with their lord. And with thousands of citizens in the city, keeping me a secret would be impossible. If word got out to greedy nobles or the royal family, they might try to steal her away or scare her off. I couldn't risk losing her. I explained it to her carefully, tying everything back to food. If you show up as a dragon, the city will fall into chaos. Trade routes will shut down, farms will be abandoned, and the ingredients for all those delicious dishes might disappear forever. The moment she heard, ingredients might disappear, all her enthusiasm deflated. She didn't fully understand trade routes, but she understood one thing perfectly. No ingredients meant no food. I asked if she had any magic that could make us fly or move faster. She shook her head sadly. My dragon magic is all for fighting. Nothing like that. Then her eyes suddenly lit up. She puffed out her little chest proudly. I've got it. Even in human form, I'm still super strong. I'll carry you on my back. A few dozen kilometers is nothing. We'll be there in no time. I looked down at this tiny girl whose head barely reached my waist, then looked at my own 6-foot frame, and imagined a grown man riding piggyback on a little girl sprinting across the countryside. The image was completely ridiculous, but honestly, I couldn't think of a better option. Fine, I gave in. But we have to avoid the main roads. Nobody can see us. I'm a lord. If people catch me being carried on someone's back, I'll never live it down. Mia nodded, not really understanding but not caring either. As long as braised pork belly was waiting at the end, she'd agree to anything. I took a deep breath, accepted my fate, and carefully climbed onto her tiny back. Instead of feeling bony and weak like I expected, she was surprisingly soft and warm. Her small body gave off a strange, comfortable heat and a faint, pleasant scent. A funny thought crossed my mind. Did this technically make me a dragon rider? She was in human form, sure, but she was still a real dragon. Those spoiled noble kids back in the capital would die of jealousy. The kingdom's proudest warriors were griffin riders. Dragon riders hadn't existed for nearly 1,000 years. And here I was, becoming one in the most absurd way possible. Though for now, I was just the trial version. Let's go, Mia chirped. The world blurred. Wind screamed past my ears. The feeling was worse than any roller coaster or free-fall ride from my past life. 1,000 times worse. All I could do was cling to her tiny body for dear life. When she finally stopped, I stumbled off, grabbed a dead tree, and bent over dry heaving. Lynn, you're so weak, she said, tilting her head, not even slightly tired. She actually looked excited. I waved her off. I had no energy to deal with her teasing. After a few minutes of recovering by the trees, I straightened my clothes, took her hand, and walked toward Winterfell City's crumbling gate. The guards looked confused when they saw me come back alone with a strange, doll-like pink-haired girl, but they quickly saluted. I told them to send Char to the Lord's manor when he arrived. Walking through the city with Mia, I saw everything up close. The roads were full of holes. The houses were crooked shacks built from rough wood. The few people on the streets were thin, pale, dressed in rags, their faces blank with the look of people who'd been starving and overworked for too long. When they saw my noble clothing, fear flashed in their eyes. They lowered their heads and shuffled to the side of the road, as if I were some kind of predator coming to devour them. I noticed every detail, and it made my heart heavy. That previous lord, the old baron who got transferred to some rich southern territory, had obviously squeezed these people dry. In their eyes, I was probably just another master who'd take whatever little they had left. The truth was, there was nothing left to take. If I issued even one more tax, I wouldn't need orcs or monsters to destroy the city. The people would collapse on their own from sheer hopelessness. These few thousand people on the edge of death were everything I had. They were the foundation for any future I wanted to build. The first step was keeping them alive and giving them something to hope for. But figuring out how to lift up people who had been completely crushed, that was the real challenge. Mia tugged my hand and whispered, Lynn, why does everyone look so sad? And the stuff they're holding looks really gross. I looked down at her innocent golden eyes. Because they're hungry and can't afford good food. But don't worry, soon, I'll make sure every one of them gets a full meal. It sounded like a promise to Mia, but it was really an oath I was making to myself. When we entered the castle, the first thing I saw was Anna. She was half-heartedly sweeping the floor, glancing at the door over and over, her blue eyes full of worry. The moment she spotted me, she froze, then dropped the broom, ran straight at me, and threw herself into my arms, squeezing me tight around the waist. You're finally back? I was so worried. Her voice cracked and her body trembled. I felt a warmth in my chest. I held her gently, patting her back. I'm fine, see? I'm home safe. You're a big girl. No more crying. Mia stood beside us, head tilted, golden eyes full of pure curiosity. She looked at Anna hugging me, then down at her own hand still holding mine, clearly unable to understand why this orange-haired girl was so emotional. In Mia's ancient but simple mind, the concept of love between a man and a woman simply didn't exist. Anna finally calmed down, realized how she'd been acting, and her face turned bright red. She pulled away quickly, fidgeting with the hem of her clothes, head down in embarrassment. That's when she finally noticed the pink-haired little girl standing next to me, staring at her with curious eyes. Oh, Anna let out a little gasp, instantly charmed by Mia. She bent down to me as eye level and said sweetly, What an adorable little girl. Who is she? Before I could react, Anna reached out and started stroking Mia's pink hair. My heart jumped. This cute girl was actually a dragon that could flatten the entire city in seconds. But to my relief, Mia didn't mind at all. She just looked at Anna curiously and let her pet her head. Whose child is she? Is she lost? Anna asked, still fascinated. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't exactly tell her the truth. She's not a kid. She's a world-destroying dragon I lured out of the forest with barbecue. Anna would faint on the spot. So I kept it simple. Her name is Mia. Starting today, she's my little sister. She'll be living with us in this castle. I'll explain more later. Anna looked confused. My black hair and Mia's pink hair didn't exactly scream siblings, but she trusted me and didn't push it. Now go get dinner ready, I told her. We have a new family member, so make it big, 10 times the usual amount. An extra braised pork belly. Anna's face was full of questions about why we needed 10 times the food for so few people, but she bowed and headed to the kitchen. Without argument. Here's the thing about the cooking situation. I had tons of knowledge about Chinese cuisine from my past life, but my actual cooking skills were mediocre at best. Anna, on the other hand, had incredible natural talent. When I described dishes to her, she believed in my descriptions even more than I did, and with her amazing understanding and skill, she recreated Chinese food perfectly. Her cooking was leagues beyond anything I could make myself. I took Mia to the overgrown courtyard behind the manor and found a clean stone step to sit on. Mia plopped down right next to me, swinging her little legs in the air. I decided to lay down some ground rules. Mia, Winterfell City is our home now, and there are a few rules you need to remember. Rules? Is there something I can't eat? She looked at me with genuine concern. I laughed. No, it's not about food. First, and most important, never reveal your true identity to anyone. No dragon magic in front of people. She nodded, sort of understanding. Second, don't hurt anyone in the city. They're all weak, ordinary people. Another nod. Third, if you need anything or have any problems, come to me. I'll handle it. Then I added with a grin. But of course, if someone is stupid enough to pick a fight with you, don't hold back. Beat them up. And if you can't win, come get me and we'll beat them up together. That one she understood perfectly. She broke into a big, happy smile, her golden eyes curving into little crescent moons. We sat there in the afternoon sun, a young human lord and a powerful dragon, looking exactly like a real brother and sister. Soon, amazing smells drifted from the kitchen. Mia's nose started twitching nonstop. Anna appeared. Dinner is ready. I grabbed Mia's hand and headed to the dining room. The table was covered with dishes. A big plate of glossy braised pork belly in the center, golden roast chicken, stir-fried vegetables, and a steaming pot of meat soup. Mia's eyes locked on the food and her jaw nearly dropped. She broke free from my hand and rushed to the table, standing on her tiptoes to grab the pork belly with her bare hands. I caught her just in time. Before you eat, you need to learn to use utensils. I showed her a small fork, a spoon, and chopsticks, explaining what each one was for. She frowned and clumsily tried to copy my movements while Anna stood nearby watching with a warm, happy smile. After a bit of chaos, the three of us finally sat down properly. I placed a piece of braised pork belly, perfectly marbled fat and lean, into Mia's bowl, then put one in my own mouth. Even after eating Anna's cooking many times, I was still amazed by her talent. This was getting close to professional chef level from my old world. Once Mia figured out the fork, she went into full eating mode. Her little cheeks puffed out like a hamster's, her eyes squeezed shut with happiness. Watching Mia devour dish after dish, I couldn't help but smile. After today's barbecue and tonight's dinner, I was confident this pink-haired girl was completely won over. I glanced at Anna sitting beside me, eating small, delicate bites, and felt a wave of emotion. I remembered how terrified she was when she first came to serve me. Back then, she wouldn't even sit down when I told her to. She'd drop to her knees in panic. In this world where nobles and commoners were strictly separated, sharing a table with your master was unthinkable. It took me a long time to convince her we were family, not master and servant. To me, Anna stopped being just a maid a long time ago. She was the person I trusted most. Anna and I finished eating quickly, and we both ended up staring at Mia's side of the table. Plates were piled up like a small mountain. All the food kept disappearing into that tiny mouth at an incredible speed. Not messy, but shockingly fast. I'd already seen this in the forest, so I wasn't surprised. For an ancient dragon, this was probably just a light snack. Anna, though, had no idea. Her blue eyes kept getting wider, her mouth hanging open. She couldn't understand how this little girl smaller than her was eating so much. Now she finally understood why I'd asked for 10 times the usual amount. After dinner, Mia sat next to me happily, swinging her little legs, eyes glowing with contentment. I patted her pink hair and teased her. Pretty good, right? Better than the forest barbecue? Yes, yes. So good. She nodded hard. Lynn didn't lie. I want to eat this every day from now on. She said it with such seriousness, like she was announcing a life-changing decision. I kept stroking her head. Don't worry. There's way more to come. Not just braised pork belly. Lots of things you haven't tried yet. She snuggled closer and rubbed her little head against me like a kitten completely conquered by food. Not a trace of dragon majesty left. My heart finally relaxed. This powerful but simple-minded girl wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. With Mia here, Winterfell City's defense went from nearly zero to rivaling the imperial capital overnight. A knock came at the door. Char and the 2 guards walked in, dusty from hard riding. They knelt and saluted. Then Char said he was surprised I'd arrived so fast. They'd ridden at full speed and only just gotten back themselves. I coughed awkwardly. I couldn't exactly say a little girl carried me on her back. I had a small stroke of luck on the road. Got here early. You've all worked hard. The guards stood, and their eyes drifted to Mia. Despite her adorable appearance, a flicker of awe crossed their faces. They knew what she really was. I gave Char his orders. 2 things. First, food is our most urgent problem. Starting tomorrow, form a hunting party and go to the outer monster forest every day. We need a steady supply of meat. Second, send word to the civil administrator Barry. I want everyone assembled at the central square tomorrow morning. I have an important announcement. Char agreed without hesitation. Before he left, I stopped him. One more thing. Mia's identity stays secret. Only you 3 and I know. When things get better, I'll reward you well. With Mia here, this city will only grow stronger. You'll have both status and wealth. But if word gets out and Mia leaves, we'll have nothing to stop the orcs or monster waves. We'd all die here. The 3 of them turned serious immediately and swore to keep the secret. Then I told the 2 guards they could bring their families to Winterfell City. With Mia around, it was safer here than back at the Thunder Marquis territory. I promised their families would have a better life once my reforms began. They agreed happily. After they left, I pulled Char aside privately. Keep those 2 stationed at the manor as castle guards. They don't go outside. If either of them suddenly tries to leave, tell me immediately. Char's expression hardened. He understood. Yes, my lord. After dinner, I had Anna take Mia for a bath. Being a dragon, Mia's body was naturally clean. She even had a pleasant scent. But if she was going to live like a human, she needed human habits. Mia was confused. Isn't bathing just jumping in water and rolling around a few times? Why all the fuss? I didn't bother explaining. I just told Anna to take her. Words wouldn't work, experience would. Sure enough, half an hour later, Mia came running out of the bathroom in pajamas like a happy little butterfly and threw herself into my arms. Lynn, bathing is so fun. The warm water feels amazing. She was soaking wet, her pink hair smelling of fresh soap, and she was beaming with excitement over her new discovery. I caught her and gently stroked her damp hair. Then Anna walked over with a smile and told me my bath water was ready too. Mia looked up at me with those innocent golden eyes. You haven't bathed yet? Why didn't you bathe with me? Even with 2 lifetimes of experience, that question made me a little awkward. I gave her a simple explanation about how boys and girls bathe separately. She didn't fully get it, but she nodded anyway. I told her to sit on a chair in the living room and wait. Don't wander around, or you might not find me. She sat up perfectly straight, hands on her knees, and said with total seriousness, Don't worry, Lynn. I'll sit right here and wait. I couldn't help smiling at how earnest she looked. When I came back half an hour later, fresh and clean, Mia was still sitting exactly where I'd left her, swinging her legs and humming some unknown tune. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up. She hopped down and ran over, holding out her little hand. I took it and led her to a side room in the back courtyard. Anna had already cleaned it up, a big soft bed with white sheets, a dressing table, a chair, candlelight making everything feel cozy. This is your room now, Mia. That's the soft bed I told you about. She let go of my hand, launched herself onto the bed, and rolled around happily several times. This is so comfortable. Way better than sleeping on rocks. I mentally gave myself a pat on the back. This was exactly my plan. Once Mia got used to all of this, the warm bed, the delicious food, the care and attention, Winterfell City would become a home she'd never want to leave. Life in the wild couldn't compete with this. All right, Mia, it's late. Get some rest. I'll come see you first thing tomorrow morning. The instant those words left my mouth, she froze mid-roll. Her smile disappeared. She sat up slowly, and I could see panic creeping into her eyes. She'd always been alone, used to loneliness, sleeping for centuries to pass the time. But after just one single day with me, the food, the warmth, the company, the thought of being alone again, even for just one night, made her uneasy. "Lynn, where are you going? Aren't you staying with me?" Her golden eyes were shining, with a hint of pleading she probably didn't even realize she was showing. I shook my head and ruffled her hair. "Remember what we talked about? Boys and girls sleep separately. I'll come find you first thing in the morning." Her face fell instantly. She flopped backward onto the bed like a deflated balloon, looking completely miserable. I almost laughed out loud. This girl wore every emotion right on her face. "Come on, don't be sad. Tomorrow I'll take you around the city, and Anna will cook you something special. Deal?" The words, "around the city," and "something special," brought the sparkle back to her eyes right away. "Have I ever lied to you?" I said with a grin. That did the trick. Her mood bounced right back. After settling my simple-minded little dragon for the night, I left with Anna, who'd been standing nearby the whole time watching us with a quiet smile, and headed back to my own room. In the bedroom, Anna finally asked what she'd been dying to know while making the bed. "Who is Mia really? That appetite isn't normal. And you seem to care about her a lot." I looked at her pretty face, flushed with curiosity, and teased, "Is my little maid jealous?" And no. Her cheeks turned red instantly. "I was just curious. I'll always support you no matter what." I smiled, scooped her up in my arms, and carried her to the bed. I whispered that if she made me happy tonight, I'd tell her everything about Mia. Afterward, Anna lay against my chest, her orange hair messy, cheeks still flushed. I stroked her back and told her the truth, that Mia was a real dragon. The room went dead silent. Anna's body went stiff, and her face turned white with fear. A D-dragon? Mia is a dragon? But when she looked at my face and saw no trace of fear, she gradually calmed down. She took a deep breath and promised to keep the secret. I gently brushed her hair and said, "Listen, if something dangerous ever happens, your safety comes first. Forget any secret. You're the most important family I have." Those words broke through the last wall around her heart. The fear melted away, replaced by deep emotion, and her blue eyes glistened. After that, we didn't do much more talking for a while. The next morning, Anna helped me get dressed, still blushing slightly. I kissed her cheek and headed to Mia's room. I found her curled up on the bed like a kitten, pink hair spread across the white sheets, hugging a pillow tightly. Who would believe this adorable sleeping creature was a world-shaking dragon? I gently shook her shoulder. "Mia, wake up. The sun's already up." She groaned and buried her face in the pillow, blinking slowly with a completely dazed expression, the classic look of someone who had no idea where she was. "Get up. I'm taking you out to play." That word, play, flipped a switch in her brain. Her eyes snapped into focus and she was instantly awake. "Where are we going?" "First, wash up and change clothes." Anna came in with warm water. After last night's shock, she'd completely recovered. She looked at Mia with the same warmth and affection as before, as if learning the truth had never happened. Minutes later, a freshly dressed Mia came bounding out, ran up to me, and held out her little hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I took it and led her out of the back courtyard. Char and 5 guards were waiting outside, standing at attention. When they saw me walk out hand in hand with Mia like siblings, a subtle look of awe crossed their faces. We walked through the rundown streets to the central square, really just a flat patch of packed dirt with a worn-out kingdom emblem in the middle. Thanks to last night's orders, the square was already packed. Nearly every citizen in the city, men, women, old, young, had gathered and was waiting. The central square buzzed with nervous whispers before I arrived. I could imagine what they were saying. Another lord, another tax increase, another step closer to starvation. These people expected the worst because that's all they'd ever known. When I walked in holding Mia's hand, the crowd went silent. Thousands of thin, frightened faces stared at me, a young nobleman in fine clothes, completely out of place in this ruined city. They looked at me the way they'd look at a predator, eyes down, bodies trembling, waiting for the blow to fall. Seeing them up close hit me hard. They were skin and bones, faces yellow from malnutrition. What they wore could barely be called clothing, just scraps of cloth. But the worst part was their eyes. Empty, afraid, dropping the moment they met mine. This was the reality of the Ayla kingdom. Nobles lived in luxury while common people were squeezed until they had nothing left, all hope crushed out of them. I cleared my throat and let my voice carry across the square. My name is Lynn Austin. I'm your new lord. I know what you're afraid of, new taxes, handing over what little food you have left. I saw people shrink even lower, shaking, bracing for the announcement they dreaded. I paused, then made my first declaration. Starting today, all taxes in Winterfell City are abolished for the next 2 years. No new taxes of any kind. The air froze. Slowly, heads lifted. Dull eyes flickered with disbelief. People looked at each other, wondering if they'd heard wrong. No noble had ever stopped taking from them. I kept going. I know you have nothing right now. But starting tomorrow, everything changes. The Lord's Manor will hire anyone with useful skills. Farmers, women who raise chickens, carpenters who can fix houses, hunters who know the forest. Whatever you can do, we need you. And you'll be paid fairly in grain and coin for your work. That hit them like thunder. The fear on their faces started cracking, replaced by tiny sparks of something they hadn't felt in a long time. But just as quickly, most of them looked down again. They'd been lied to and exploited for so long that they simply couldn't believe a noble would pay them for honest labor. Off to the side, I noticed the civil administrator Barry drenched in sweat. I could practically read his thoughts. No taxes plus paying commoners with food and money equaled bankruptcy within a month. He thought I was insane. He wanted to rush up and stop me, but he didn't dare. In this world, a commoner challenging a noble's decision could mean a public whipping or death. Words alone weren't going to be enough. These people needed proof. I turned and nodded to Char. He signaled his men, and 2 guards carried a heavy wooden chest onto the platform. In front of thousands of staring eyes, Char unlatched the chest and tipped it over. A cascade of shining copper and silver coins poured across the stage, ringing out bright and clear in the sunlight. Real money, right there in front of them. The crowd erupted. Every neck craned forward, every pair of eyes locked onto those glittering coins. I walked to the pile of coins and spoke again. My promises are real. This money is the first payment. Then I issued my first recruitment order. I need 50 hunters who know the forest. You'll join a hunting team. Pay is 30 copper coins per day, plus meals, 30 coppers a day, 9 silver coins a month, with food included. Even in the richest parts of the kingdom, commoners would fight for those terms. A normal worker was lucky to earn 10 coppers a day. 9 silvers could comfortably feed a family of 3 for a whole month. The crowd exploded. All the doubt and numbness shattered in an instant. My lord, my family have been hunters for 3 generations. A skeletal man shoved through the crowd, hand raised high. Pick me. I can survive 10 days in the forest without getting lost. I make the best traps. Voices erupted from everywhere. The square that had been dead and silent minutes ago was now bursting with energy. I nodded with satisfaction and signaled Char to start selecting candidates. Then I announced a second recruitment. I also need 100 laborers to repair the city walls and the Lord's Manor. 20 copper coins per day, plus meals. Nearly every able-bodied man went wild. Wall repair was hard work, but everyone could do it, and the pay was incredible. It felt like a gift from the gods. Watching the excitement, I knew this first step had worked. Once people saw I kept my word, everything after this would be easier. I just needed to unite the city's workforce, and Winterfell City would come back to life. I took Mia's hand and quietly left the square while the crowd was still cheering. The moment I stepped into the reception hall, Barry the civil administrator came running in, sweating and panicked. My lord, you can't do this. The city is an empty shell. Hiring all those people and feeding them, we can't sustain it. We'll run out of food completely, and then there'll be real chaos. He was genuinely terrified. If things collapsed, I could walk away. I was a noble, and the kingdom wouldn't punish a noble over commoners' problems. But Barry was a commoner himself. If Winterfell City fell apart, he'd go down with it. I looked at him calmly. So what should I do? Squeeze out their last crumbs like the previous lord? Watch them starve or turn into refugees? He went silent. He knew that wasn't the answer either, but he had nothing better to suggest. Char walked in and confirmed the recruitment was set. I nodded, went to my room, and came back with a few items that I placed on the table. A beautiful longsword made entirely of fine steel with a magic core embedded in the handle. Beside it, several scrolls made of special parchment with complex patterns drawn on them. That's a tier 3 enchanted sword, Char blurted out. eyes wide with envy. I looked at the weapon one last time. My mother secretly gave me this sword on my birthday. The scrolls I collected over the years. Char, take some trusted guards, go to the northern fortress, sell everything, and buy as much grain and supplies as you can. My lord, absolutely not. Char stepped forward urgently. This sword and these scrolls are your protection. If you sell them and something dangerous happens, how will you stay safe? I shook my head, smiled, walked over, and patted his shoulder. Relax, Char. Since yesterday, I don't need these things to protect me anymore. Do I? Char froze. Then his eyes drifted to the pink-haired girl curiously watching us from the side. Understanding hit him instantly. With Mia around, no sword or magic scroll in the world could offer better protection than an actual dragon. Yes, my lord. I'll get it done. Barry stood there watching all of this, completely lost. He couldn't understand the exchange between me and Char, and he couldn't wrap his head around what I was doing. In his entire life, he'd never seen or even heard of a noble selling his own precious weapons and magical items to help a bunch of commoners he barely knew. Everything he thought he understood about how nobles worked was falling apart. After settling all of this, I turned to Barry. Take me to see the farmland outside the city. I need to understand why so much of it has been abandoned. He snapped out of his daze, bowed, and led the way. I took Mia's hand. She'd been quietly watching everything with wide, curious eyes, and followed him out. We headed through the broken streets toward the west gate. Barry walked ahead, sneaking glances back at me and Mia. I could tell he was puzzled. No matter where I went or what I did, I was always holding Mia's hand. I found out later what Barry was actually thinking. Having served under the previous lord for years, he'd heard plenty of dirty rumors about noble circles and their strange preferences. He'd started wondering if I had some kind of weird obsession with young girls, and whether he should start finding more like Mia for me. Of course, I had no idea about any of that at the time. I was busy answering Mia's endless questions about everything she saw. Lynn, what's that? Can you eat it? She pointed at a shop selling black bread. I shook my head with a smile. That stuff tastes terrible. Poor people eat it when there's nothing else. Once Winterfell City develops, they'll have better food. Oh. She nodded but kept staring at the bread, obviously wanting to try it anyway. I'll have Anna make you some when we get back. Yay? You're the best, Lynn. Her eyes squeezed into happy crescents. I was amazed at how easy it was to make a dragon happy. We passed through the west gate, and I got my first real look at the farmland. It was devastating. The soil was rock-hard and cracked from years without care or rain. The field borders had crumbled. Patches of dead yellow weeds grew here and there, and rusted, broken farming tools lay scattered in the distance. Barry pointed at the land with a bitter expression. This is our best farmland, my lord. But the soil is too compacted to plow. We can't afford oxen from the northern fortress. And even if we could plow it, the climate is too dry. Monster waves come through regularly, and without proper water, nothing decent will grow. I listened quietly, crouching down to feel a clump of dirt harder than rock. This was the root of Winterfell City's agricultural collapse. Terrible natural conditions trapped in a cycle with terrible productivity. Then a small stone flew past my face. I turned and saw Mia kicking pebbles with her little feet, bored. A bold idea struck me instantly. Not enough manpower. Harsh natural conditions. But standing right next to me was a being that could reshape nature itself. What force of production could possibly match a dragon? I knelt down and looked at Mia with excitement. Mia, this ground is way too hard to grow food in. Can you do something to make it soft again? She tilted her head, confused. I tried simpler words. Just break up the ground so it's not all clumped together like rocks. Her face lit up. She patted her little chest proudly. Oh, that's easy. She let go of my hand and walked to the center of the barren field. Barry had no clue what was happening, but the guards who'd been with me in the monster forest knew. They immediately grabbed Barry and pulled him back. Barry was baffled. Why would grown men be afraid of a little girl? Mia's small pink lips began chanting a series of ancient, deep syllables. The air around her started to vibrate. I couldn't understand a single word. It clearly wasn't any human language. Dragon tongue. An invisible wave of magical energy exploded outward from Mia, sweeping in every direction while carefully avoiding me. As the final syllable dropped, a flash of authority crossed her golden eyes. She raised her little foot and stomped the hard ground, gently. The earth erupted. The ground shook, rolled, and heaved. Every cracked, stone-hard slab of soil I could see was ripped up from below by some enormous underground force, shattered to pieces. Dark, rich soil that had been buried deep underground came surging to the surface. Barry collapsed to the ground, pointing at the scene with trembling lips, unable to form words. Even the guards who knew Mia's true identity stood there with their jaws hanging open. And this was only the beginning. I walked over to Mia and whispered something in her ear. She grinned proudly and nodded. Then she lifted her little face toward the sky and began chanting in dragon tongue again. The sky went dark instantly. Massive amounts of water energy gathered above Winterfell City, forming thick storm clouds. From the center of those clouds, an enormous dragon head made entirely of pure water emerged. With a silent roar, it shattered apart, and torrents of rain came crashing down. Water soaked into the freshly broken soil, turning the once bone-dry earth into rich, wet mud. When it was done, Mia dusted off her little hands like she'd just finished some tiny chore, trotted back to me, and looked up expectantly. I picked her up and spun her around. "You're amazing, Mia. Anna's making you an extra special dinner tonight," she giggled, eyes curving into happy crescents again. Barry was still sitting on the ground, completely soaked, staring at Mia like his brain had shut down. He'd seen high-level mages before. They'd chant long spells and throw attacks. But nothing any of them could do came close to what this little girl just did with a few words and a stomp. Then I could see the realization hit him. Now he understood why I brought Mia everywhere, why I sold my weapons without worry. If you had someone this powerful who actually listened to you, of course you'd keep her close. The guards who knew Mia's identity were just as stunned. I could practically read their thoughts. Their lord was using a dragon's earth-shattering power to farm. If the dragon race or the kingdom's top warriors ever found out, they'd probably brand me a heretic for using the most sacred dragon magic in existence to grow crops. I didn't care about any of that. I turned to Barry with a sharp look. "Barry, the soil and water problems are solved. Go back to the city immediately and issue a new recruitment order. I need farmers, as many as possible." He scrambled to his feet, looking at me with a mix of awe and something almost like excitement. "Hire everyone willing to farm. They get meals while working, and I'm changing the tax system. The Lord's manor will take only 50% of whatever is harvested for taxes and reserves. The other 50% belongs to the farmers. The more you grow, the more you keep." Barry stared at me in disbelief. "My lord, that's too generous. Other lords in the kingdom take 60 to 80%. If you only leave farmers a tiny bit, they'll work desperately just to survive. Give them too much and they might get lazy." I cut him off with a wave of my hand. "Do as I say. What other lords do is their business. In Winterfell City, I make the rules. And tell the people, there will be more opportunities coming. From now on, no one in this city will starve or freeze to death." This time, Barry didn't argue. Something had changed in his eyes. He looked at the transformed land, thought about everything I'd announced today, and I could see a fire lighting inside him. Maybe some old childhood dream about making the world better, buried under years of just going along with how things were. "If there are any problems during planting, missing seeds, broken tools, anything, come straight to me. Food production is the top priority." "Yes, my lord." He nodded hard, then took off running toward the city faster than I'd ever seen a man his size move. I took Mia's hand. "Let's go home and eat." Her eyes sparkled the instant she heard the word eat. She grabbed my hand and pulled me forward, chanting, "Food, food. Mia wants food." As she dragged me along, my mind was already working through what came next. The food crisis was handled for now. Hunting teams in the monster forest, Char buying supplies from the northern fortress, and soon our own crops. With Mia around, neither orcs nor monster waves could derail our progress. But Mia wasn't the answer to everything. Even the strongest being gets tired, and I couldn't depend on her for every problem. Winterfell City needed its own soldiers. Mia should only step in against truly unstoppable threats. The problem was, my people were too weak and poor to build a real army. No money, no manpower, no materials. I needed a plan for what came next, because a dragon alone wasn't going to build a city. Back at the manor, Mia broke free from my hand and ran straight to Anna, standing with her hands on her hips, bursting with pride. "Anna, I helped Lynn today. First I went boom and broke up all the ground, then whoosh and made it all wet. Lynn said I was amazing. Without me, everyone would go hungry. She waved her little arms around, reenacting the whole thing. Anna looked confused but played along with a surprised expression, then glanced at me for confirmation. I nodded with a smile. She really did save us. Most of our farmland was ruined, and without Mia's help, we wouldn't be growing our own food anytime soon. Anna knelt down, stroked Mia's head, and said warmly, "You're incredible, Mia, like a goddess from the legends." Mia beamed, eyes curving into crescents. "I worked really hard today, so I deserve lots and lots of meat for lunch." Lunch was massive as usual. Enough food for dozens of strong men disappeared into Mia without a trace. Afterward, she tugged at me. "Let's go play." "Not this afternoon." I grabbed a practice sword from the wall. "I need to train." I went to the backyard and started drilling, slashing, sweeping, thrusting. Basic sword forms, no fancy moves, no battle energy. Just the same repetitive practice I'd done for years. My talent was average, so all I could do was grind through the effort to keep myself alive in a dangerous world. Sweat soaked through my clothes, but I didn't stop. Mia sat on Anna's lap nearby, swinging her feet, watching me with deep confusion. "Anna, what's Lynn doing? It looks really hard and tiring." For Mia, strength was something you were born with. She couldn't understand why anyone would struggle like this. Anna held her close, her blue eyes never leaving me, filled with affection and a trace of worry. "Because he wants to protect things with his own strength. This city, the people who follow him, and you too, Mia." "Protect me?" Mia tested the unfamiliar word, her golden eyes fixed on me swinging a sword in the sunlight. I looked weak to her, obviously, but somehow, she seemed to feel something reliable about it. Something small started growing in that little head of hers. That evening, the hunting team I'd had Char organize came back. The leader was a guard named Logan, from a family of hunters who specialized in wilderness trapping. "My lord," Logan knelt, looking excited. "Good haul today. 3 antelopes, several feathered chickens, and we captured a live Tier 1 black rock boar." I looked behind them at a massive, thrashing wild boar with sharp tusks, tied up with thick rope. "Nice work, Logan." He grinned and suggested, "We could sell it at the northern fortress. A live monster is worth way more than a dead one." This boar could fetch dozens of gold coins. But looking at that struggling beast, a bigger idea came to me. Selling it was a one-time deal. What if I kept it as a breeding boar? Cross it with the city's domestic pigs, and the offspring would carry a trace of monster blood. Faster growth, better meat quality. Those half-monster pigs wouldn't be real monsters, but they'd be valuable to mid-level nobles and wealthy merchants. A sustainable business, not a quick sale. That was what Winterfell City needed. Logan stared at me, then pointed at the raging boar with a grimace. "My lord, that won't work. Monsters are savage and almost impossible to tame. We only caught this one because it fell into a trap and exhausted itself. Once it recovers, it'll tear apart any pen we put it in. There's no way it would cooperate with breeding." He had a point. I'd gotten excited about the economics and forgotten how vicious monsters in this world actually were. Getting a wild beast to behave seemed impossible. Just as I was wondering whether to abandon the idea and just sell it, a small figure came running out of the manor. "Lynn, is it dinner time? I'm so hungry." Mia trotted over to me, looked around curiously, and spotted the tied-up boar. She walked right up to it. The black rock boar had been thrashing and screaming nonstop. But the instant Mia got close, it froze completely. Its big pig eyes stared at her, wide and blank. Then its entire body started shaking violently, and a large wet puddle spread across the ground beneath it. The hunting team was completely confused. They didn't know who Mia was, so they couldn't understand why a fierce Tier 1 monster had suddenly gone from thrashing wildly to shaking in a puddle of its own pee. But my eyes lit up immediately. I remembered what happened with the horses. Mia's dragon pressure was terrifying to any beast or monster. A Tier 1 creature, no matter how savage, couldn't resist fear programmed into its very genes. Dragons sat at the absolute top of the food chain. "Logan, take this boar to an empty shed. Tie it up with the strongest rope and fence you've got. Don't let it escape. I already have a plan for taming it." He was confused but followed orders without questioning. After they dragged the trembling boar away, I smiled at Mia, who was still curiously watching them go. "Mia, that big black pig, could you make it behave? Like, stay in its pen, eat when it's supposed to eat, sleep when it's supposed to sleep?" She thought for a moment, seeming to search through some kind of inherited dragon knowledge. Then she nodded firmly. Don't worry, Lynn. I'll make it listen. If it doesn't behave, I'll eat it. Actually, roasted would be better. Raw isn't tasty. I laughed and sent for Barry. He arrived out of breath and reported before I could even speak. My lord, the recruitment notice has spread across the whole city. The people are going wild. They won't stop praising your generosity. I've already recruited over 300 farmers for the fields. They're preparing the soil right now. The moment seeds arrive, we plant. Good. Then I told him my next plan. I'm building a livestock farm. That black rock boar the hunters caught. I'm keeping it as a breeding boar. We're going to raise half-monster pigs. Barry's face went white. My lord, you can't be serious. That's a vicious monster. Keeping it pinned up is like raising a tiger in your backyard. I could tell he thought I'd lost my mind. First a little girl using magic to farm, now raising monsters as livestock. I already have a way to tame it. Just recruit experienced animal farmers and have the laborers build a proper breeding facility outside the city walls. He saw there was no talking me out of it and accepted. The next morning, I brought Mia to the temporary shed. Even from a distance, I could hear violent crashing and furious squealing inside. Logan warned me it had recovered its full strength overnight. They'd doubled the rope and reinforced the fencing, but it probably wouldn't hold much longer. I nodded calmly and walked inside with Mia. The boar was thrashing like a maniac, eyes bloodshot. Then it saw us, or rather, saw Mia, and froze instantly. Its whole body started shaking again, whimpering in terror, another puddle forming beneath it. The hunting team members behind us stared in total confusion and started moving forward to check what was wrong with the boar. Nobody move, I said. I let go of Mia's hand and gave her a nod. She understood perfectly. She marched up to the fence with her little chest puffed out, stared the boar down with those pure golden eyes, and spoke a string of ancient, strange syllables. As she talked, the boar gradually stopped trembling. Its massive head slowly lowered, and it started nuzzling the ground with its snout in a submissive, desperate-to-please way, eyes full of obedience. Mia trotted back to me, face glowing with pride. Done. I warned it. If it doesn't behave, I'll roast it and eat it. I patted her head approvingly, then looked at the boar, now as docile as a pet dog. Untie it, I told Logan. My lord, that's too dangerous. If it goes berserk again, don't worry. Do as I say. They reluctantly stepped forward, carefully removing the ropes with long poles while staying on high alert. What happened next shocked everyone. Once the ropes came off, the black rock boar didn't attack or even try to run. It just stood there, backed up 2 steps, and kept its head low, refusing to look at anyone. The hunting team was completely lost. They all ended up staring at Mia, the little pink-haired girl happily holding my hand, beaming from the praise I'd given her. They started whispering among themselves, probably guessing she was some kind of mage or special profession. Fear crept into the way they looked at her. I told Logan to bring some feed. He grabbed dry grass and vegetables from the stable and placed them carefully in front of the boar. The boar lifted its head, glanced nervously in Mia's direction, almost like asking permission, and only started eating once it confirmed she wasn't paying attention to it. Perfect. Blood-level intimidation worked far better than any normal taming method. With Mia around, I could theoretically build an entire monster army. But that was wasteful right now. Better to invest these resources into livestock. I turned to Logan with new orders. From today, the hunting team's mission changes. Stop killing monsters for meat. We'll have stable food sources soon. Instead, I want you to capture monsters alive. Herbivores and omnivores. Horses, deer, pigs, cattle types. Anything we can farm. Bring them back alive. I have a way to make them useful for breeding. Logan looked at me like I'd gone crazy. Other lords spent their time chasing women, abusing commoners, or throwing parties. His lord wanted to catch wild monsters and raise them like farm animals. But an order was an order. Yes, my lord. Back at the manor, Barry was waiting with 5 ragged, nervous-looking citizens. They bowed fearfully the moment they saw me. Barry introduced them, the best animal farmers in Winterfell City. Old Hank had bred half the pigs in the city. Marcia raised chickens famous for their large, plentiful eggs. I started asking questions. Hank, how do you raise pigs? What's your biggest problem? The old man wrung his calloused hands nervously. I keep the pen clean and feed them fresh food, never anything moldy. The worst thing is swine plague. Once it hits, a whole litter dies within days. How do you prevent it? What do you do with the dead pigs? He started trembling, his voice dropping. We eat them ourselves or sell them cheap to others. His face went pale when he saw my expression change. My lord, we have no choice. Nobody can afford a priest for healing, and priests won't treat livestock unless a noble orders them to. I turned to Marcia with the same questions about her chickens. Same story, basic pen farming, occasional bug supplements, and chicken plague that wiped out entire flocks. Dead birds got plucked, roasted, and sold so nobody could tell they'd been diseased. After hearing everyone out, I had a clear picture. People here did small-scale farming. 1 pig if you had money, a few chickens if you didn't, mostly to sell, rarely to eat themselves. Sanitation was poor, and plagues hit regularly. The part that really bothered me was that nobody buried or burned diseased animals. They ate them or sold them, spreading the sickness further. But I understood. Even in the 21st century, swine flu and bird flu happened. And these people were starving. When the choice was between definitely starve now or might get sick later, almost everyone would pick the risk. I didn't lecture them about the past. What's done is done. Instead, I got straight to business. I understand your situations. As Barry told you, I'm building a large-scale farming operation. You 5 will be the first employees, 20 copper coins per day, meals included. If the animals thrive, you'll get livestock of your own as a bonus. All 5 dropped to their knees in gratitude, swearing they'd take care of everything perfectly. I had them stand up and laid down the new rules. From today, no more eating or selling diseased animals. What you've been eating isn't meat, it's sickness. Those dead animals are full of disease that can spread to people and across the whole territory. Any sick livestock gets killed, buried, and burned. Anyone caught hiding diseased meat goes to jail. They looked completely lost. They didn't understand what virus meant or why this was now a jailing offense. I kept going, pulling from farming videos I remembered from my past life. The pig pens will have 2 separate areas. One dry area for sleeping, one for waste that gets washed with water every day. The whole pen stays clean at all times. Old Hank was stunned. He'd raised pigs his whole life and never heard of anything like this. I turned to Marcia. When feeding chickens, mix in finely crushed small stones and chopped wild vegetables. They need proper nutrition to grow and lay well. Marcia looked just as baffled. Intentionally feeding chickens stones? Making them special meals? Raising chickens was just scattering scraps and letting them scratch around. Then I dropped another one. Starting today, you'll keep daily records of what every piglet and growing pig eats, what kind of food, how much. Young pigs and full-grown pigs need different diets. I want to know what makes them grow fastest and fatten best. This data will guide all future breeding. 5 blank faces stared at me. Separate sleeping and waste areas was already bizarre. Chicken nutrition plans were absurd. Now detailed feeding records and growth tracking? In their world, livestock was livestock. Keep it alive, and that's enough. And the most unbelievable part for them was that a noble was personally teaching commoners how to raise pigs and chickens. Then I remembered one more thing from my past life. Castrating boars makes them grow faster and removes the gamey taste from the meat. One more thing. I read in an ancient farming text about a special technique. Male piglets should be castrated within 3 to 14 days of birth. It makes them grow faster and improves the meat quality. Figure out how to do it. The room went cold. Not just the 5 farmers. Even Barry shifted uncomfortably, looking like a chill had run through his lower body. Everyone's eyes changed when they looked at me. I could practically hear them wondering if their lord had some disturbing hobby and whether people would be next. I felt the awkwardness but kept my serious face. Everything I've described comes from ancient texts in the kingdom's library. Build the new farm to these standards. You 5 are the founding team. Do well, and you'll be rewarded. Yes, my lord. After they left, Mia tugged my hand, golden eyes full of innocent curiosity. Lynn, what does castrate mean? Why does it make pigs taste better? Would other meat taste better if you did it too? Looking into those pure, clueless eyes, I felt genuinely embarrassed for the first time. I mumbled something vague about her finding out when she was older and changed the subject. With farming and livestock handled, my mind turned to the military. Being a lord meant more than feeding people. I needed an army. If Mia hadn't existed, I would have dealt with the garrison on day 1. But I couldn't use Mia for every small problem. Gate disputes, low-level monsters wandering out of the forest. Wearing out my most valuable asset on minor issues would be foolish. I needed a real standing force for everyday security. I sent for Hawk, the defense commander. He arrived with heavy, steady footsteps, a big, solid man in old but polished chainmail, carrying himself with proper knight's bearing. He knelt with a fist over his chest in a formal salute. "You wanted to see me, my lord. Stand up, Hawk. Tell me the full picture of the garrison." He rose and reported grimly. "Two main problems, my lord. First, pay. The previous lord withheld 3 months of wages and took every weapon from the armory. Second, manpower. Without pay, many soldiers deserted from hunger and hopelessness. The ones still here have no will to fight." I frowned, confused. Why would the previous lord withhold soldier pay and take all the weapons? Hawk's voice dropped. Because of the disaster 6 months ago. He lost trust in us, so he took everything when he left. What disaster? Pain and anger crossed Hawk's face. He clenched his fists. The previous lord found out that Marquis Rona had a thing for Fox tribe girls. Wanting to win favor, he learned about a Fox people merchant caravan near the border. He gathered 200 of our best soldiers, crossed the border line, and launched a surprise night attack on them. And we underestimated the beast folks' fighting ability. The caravan had a high-level warrior with them. We couldn't win. Over 100 of our men died, including my second-in-command. After the defeat, the Lord blamed everything on us, called us useless, and cut off all our pay. Now I understood how the military had fallen apart. The more I learned about the previous Lord, the worse he got. He'd crushed the commoners with heavy taxes, launched a reckless attack on merchants just to impress a higher noble, blamed his own soldiers for his failure, and then walked away, leaving me this mess. "I understand," I said, looking into Hawk's eyes. I could see the fire still burning there. Years of bottled-up anger he could never express because of the gap between commoners and nobles. "Hawk, the past is done. Starting now, I need you to build me a real army." His head snapped up, eyes flashing with excitement, but he stayed silent, waiting. I stood and paced the hall, pulling together ideas from my previous life about military training and soldier welfare. First, pay. Post notices immediately. The garrison is recruiting again to fill all 300 positions. Every soldier earns 30 copper coins per day, meals included. Soldiers killed in battle get 10 gold coins delivered to their families by the Lord's manor. Soldiers disabled in combat get reassigned to lighter work. We never abandon anyone. Second, equipment. I'll have Barry arrange purchases of new armor and weapons as soon as possible. Third, and most important, training. Forget whatever you did before. Starting tomorrow, every soldier trains my way. I don't want fancy individual sword skills. I want discipline and teamwork. When 100 men stand together, they move as one. Advance, retreat, raise shields, thrust spears, all in perfect unison. Daily training, 5-kilometer weighted runs, formation drills, team combat exercises. Hawk stared at me, clearly skeptical. In his world, military strength came from individual warriors, knights with powerful battle energy and brilliant swordsmanship. Marching in neat lines and repeating boring drills couldn't possibly match a single high-level fighter. "My lord, even if we train them this way, what good is it against a high-level warrior?" I gave him a knowing look. "Don't worry. I have a plan for that. You just focus on the training." Hawk looked at my confident eyes, then thought about the pay I'd just promised. 30 coppers a day with meals, death benefits, disability support. Terms no soldier in the kingdom had ever heard of. My confidence combined with those unprecedented benefits made his blood run hot. He knelt again, voice ringing with conviction. "My lord, Hawk will serve you." That night, I finally got to rest. I lay face down on the bed while Anna massaged my sore muscles. "Mia complained to me today," Anna said. "She said you didn't take her out to play at all. You just talked to other people the whole day, and she was bored." I laughed tiredly. "I don't want to be this busy either. But we just got here. No food, no army. Everything needs fixing. At least with Mia around, I can actually try all these things without worrying about being attacked." Anna giggled. "If Mia heard you praise her like that, she'd definitely stand there with her hands on her hips, looking incredibly smug." The image popped into my head instantly. Mia striking her proud little pose, and I laughed too. Then I grabbed Anna's hand, pulled her down onto the bed, and rolled on top of her. She blushed and whispered my name softly. I leaned close to her ear. You worked so hard massaging me. Now let me return the favor. She turned even redder and murmured a quiet, okay. The candle went out. While I stayed in Winterfell City, pushing reforms forward, Char led 10 guards on the long road to the northern fortress to sell my weapons and buy supplies. The journey took several days through bleak countryside. They passed abandoned villages, empty fields, and frightened peasants who assumed any group of armed men was a tax collection squad. Life outside the city was even worse than inside it. The northern fortress was a completely different world. It was the largest trade hub and military stronghold in the western region, ruled by Marquis Rupert. Massive stone walls scarred by battle, soldiers in quality iron armor patrolling the ramparts, and a long line of merchants, nobles, and mercenaries waiting to enter. Char's group had to pay 2 silver coins just to get through the gate. Inside, the wide stone streets were lined with weapon shops, armor stores, alchemy workshops, taverns, and inns. The well-dressed citizens looked like they lived on a different planet from the starving people Char had passed along the way. The sale went smoothly. The moment Char placed my Tier 3 enchanted sword on the counter at the biggest weapons dealer in the city, the shopkeeper's eyes lit up. Tier 3 enchanted weapons were hot commodities. Many high-level warriors still used inferior gear. After some negotiation, the sword and magic scrolls brought in several thousand gold coins. Char immediately spent most of it on massive quantities of grain, seeds, and daily necessities. As over a dozen loaded wagons rolled out of the fortress, Char looked back at those towering walls and felt something he hadn't felt before: real hope. With a lord who kept pulling off miracles and a dragon disguised as a little girl, he believed Winterfell City could one day rival even this place. Back home, my reforms were in full swing. The whole city had come alive with energy. I took Mia and Barry out to inspect the farmland Mia had transformed. Hundreds of recruited farmers were working hard, clearing field borders, digging simple irrigation ditches. Every face showed a sense of purpose that had been missing for years. But watching them struggle with crude, heavy tools and haul water by hand from a distant stream, I couldn't help frowning. This was so inefficient. I turned to Barry. What if we used rain magic instead of manual watering? What if we redesigned the hoe to turn soil more easily, or built a water-powered device to lift water automatically, or used light magic to extend daylight hours so crops grow faster? Barry's smile froze. Sweat broke out on his forehead. My lord, that's not proper. Magic is for killing enemies, not farming. Other nobles would laugh at us. And redesigning tools and building water systems, those are huge projects, not something commoners should worry about. We only have a few thousand people. Let's just farm the traditional way. His reaction was exactly what my father's had been. Using magic for anything but combat was considered a disgrace to noble honor. Improving tools was beneath a lord's attention. The same stubborn thinking that had gotten me disowned. Barry was working up the courage to talk me out of it when a timid, hesitant voice spoke up from nearby. My lord, I think what you just said makes a lot of sense. Barry and I both turned to see a thin, dark-skinned, middle-aged man stepping cautiously out of the line of farmers. He wore the same ragged clothes as everyone else, but his eyes were completely different, sharp, thoughtful. He bowed nervously, then spoke up. I've thought about this before too. If we built a water tower upstream and ran channels to every field, we could save so much labor and grow much more. My eyes lit up instantly. This was the first time anyone in this world had said something that matched my own thinking. What's your name? Why do you think this way? Seeing that I wasn't angry but actually interested, the man relaxed a little. My name is Gale, my lord. I used to be the agricultural officer for Count Greenleaf's territory. I managed all his farmland. I suggested building water systems, improving tools, and hiring mages to help with farming. The Count said I was insulting noble authority and disgracing magic. He banished my whole family to Winterfell City. My interest doubled. This wasn't some criminal exile. This was a gifted agricultural expert with forward-thinking ideas, buried alive by a stubborn noble. A treasure delivered right to my doorstep. Gale, tell me everything. Every idea you have about farming, tool improvements, water systems, all of it. If it's good, you're Winterfell City's new agricultural officer starting today. Gale started shaking with emotion, tears welling up in his eyes. He'd thought he would spend the rest of his life working this dead land in silence. The ideas that got him exiled forever wasted. Now those same ideas were being called talent. He poured out everything he'd held inside for years. How to build canal networks connecting distant streams to every field. How to redesign the plow to turn deeper soil. How to select better seeds and stagger planting schedules to resist disasters. His ideas were remarkably similar to the modern farming knowledge in my head. The goals were the same. Replace inefficient manual labor with smarter, more scientific methods. The only difference was that Gale's thinking was still limited by this era. He hadn't been able to test or refine his ideas, so he held back on the bolder ones. This was exactly who I needed. I had plenty of concepts from my previous life, but I couldn't actually build any of it myself. With Gale's professional knowledge, practical experience, and innovative mind, my modern agriculture ideas could finally become reality. Excellent, I said, then turned to Barry, who stood there looking like his world was crumbling. Barry, effective immediately, Gale is Winterfell City's first agricultural officer. He's in charge of all farming production, water infrastructure, and tool development. Barry looked ready to collapse. Tax cuts one day, monster farming the next, now agricultural revolution. He'd never seen a lord this restless in all his years as an administrator. But I was the lord, I was nobility, and nobody could overrule me. Gale dropped to his knees, forehead hitting the ground, voice choked with tears. Thank you, my lord. I'll give my life for you. I told him to stand. The agricultural reform is yours now. Do whatever you need. Come to me for people, materials, anything. He hesitantly asked about the rain magic and light magic I'd mentioned, and about hiring mages. I went quiet for a moment. No mage would come to a backwater like Winterfell City, and we couldn't afford one anyway. But that wouldn't be true forever. Focus on what we can do now, water systems and better tools. I'll figure out the mage problem. It was just a promise, but Gale nodded with fire in his eyes, ready to give everything he had. By noon, Mia was yawning and tugging my arm. Can we go play this afternoon? Every day is so boring. I felt bad. I wanted to spend time with her too. It would strengthen our bond and give me a break. But the previous lord's mess was endless. The whole city was falling apart. I knelt down and looked into her golden eyes. Give me a few more days, okay? There's just so much to do right now. How about Anna takes you out? She can make you something yummy. Mia shook her head, her smile fading. I want to go with you. That hit me right in the heart. I stroked her pink hair and smiled. All right then. This afternoon, I'll take you to the monster forest. Her face exploded back into a beaming grin, eyes squeezing into happy crescents instantly. After finishing the farm business, I snuck out the west gate with Mia. I'd planned to inspect the livestock facility that afternoon, but seeing her bored little face begging me to play, I dropped everything. The farm could wait. If my little dragon got unhappy enough to wander back to the forest and go to sleep for another few centuries, all my reforms would be finished overnight. Priorities. In a quiet grove outside the city, I climbed onto Mia's back again for another Dragon Rider experience. I held on tight while the world blurred around us. Hold on tighter, Lynn. She laughed that bell-like laugh the whole way. At least this time wasn't as bad as the first. I didn't throw up. We reached the outer monster forest and strolled through it hand in hand, like it was a backyard garden instead of a death zone. Alone, the way we ran into packs of razor wolves, tusked boars the size of small bulls, and even a Tier 2 shadow leopard hiding in a tree, ready to ambush us. Every single one of them reacted the same way the moment they noticed Mia. They froze, first standing on end, then bolted in pure terror, without even looking back. I glanced at the little girl humming a tune beside me. Dragon was dragon. No matter how adorable the form, that top of the food chain pressure couldn't be hidden. We wandered freely, picking wildflowers, chasing butterflies. Mia laughed and played, and for the first time in days, I actually relaxed too. Then I stopped at the base of a broken cliff. Something caught my eye, a strange black layer of rock exposed in the cliff face, wedged between ordinary gray-brown stone. It had a dark, oily sheen. My heart skipped a beat. I grabbed a fist-sized piece that had broken off. It was slightly heavy, not too hard. I could scratch it with my fingernail. I dragged it across the ground, and it left a clear black mark. My pulse quickened. I turned to Mia. Can you gently break open this black rock layer with your magic? Just shake it apart. She loved this kind of thing. She ran to the cliff, chanted a quick spell, and gave a little stomp. The surface crumbled away, revealing a massive deposit of pure black rock several meters thick. Chunks tumbled down around my feet. Hands trembling with excitement, I picked up the largest, purest piece and pulled out my flint and tinder. I struck sparks onto it. Nothing at first, but after about 15 seconds of patient work, the black stone started to burn. An orange flame rose up with a sharp smell and heavy ash. Coal. Unprocessed, burning dirty with toxic fumes, but undeniably coal. My mind raced. With coal, everything changed. Heating through winter, forging metal, and someday, maybe even a steam engine. This single discovery opened doors I'd only dreamed about. Mia stared at the burning stone, then grabbed it right out of my hand. I almost shouted a warning, but stopped myself. She was a dragon. A little fire meant nothing to her. She held the burning coal, golden eyes sparkling. Lynn, what is this? A rock that burns. That's so cool. I laughed. It's called coal. You'll learn what it's for later. Now put it out before you set this whole cliff on fire. She squeezed her hand shut. The coal crumbled into pieces on the ground. I looked at her soot-covered little fingers and sighed. Come on, let's go wash your hands. Maybe we can catch some fish while we're at it. Her eyes lit up. She grabbed my hand with her dirty black fingers. Let's go, let's go. Fish. I looked at the black smudges now covering my hand too, shook my head with a smile, and walked with her toward the lake. That evening, we sat by the lakeshore under the moonlight. A warm campfire crackled between us, with rows of fish roasting over the flames. I turned them carefully, sprinkling my secret blend of herb spices over each one. Mia crouched on the other side, chin resting on both hands, golden eyes locked on the fish turning crispy and golden. Drool was practically dripping. Is it ready yet? It smells so good. Here, you little glutton. I handed her the first one. Careful, it's H. She'd already bitten off a huge chunk. Fish bones that would choke a normal person crunched like nothing between her little teeth. Delicious. I shook my head, laughing, and started eating my own fish. Bright moonlight, warm fire, clear lake water, and my little foodie beside me. For just a moment, it felt like I'd gone back to my old life. Summer nights, lakeside cookouts, a peace I thought I'd never feel again. Every last fish ended up in Mia's stomach, of course. After eating, she copied me and lay down on the soft grass by the lake. We stared up at the stars together. I pointed at the brightest one. See that star? Doesn't it look like the sky's eye? Then I pointed to another group. And those 7 stars connected together, don't they look like a ladle? A ladle? Can you use it to drink soup? Huh. No. It just looks like one. Then what do stars taste like? Are they yummy? Definitely not. Probably like rocks. I couldn't help laughing. Every conversation with this girl somehow came back to food. She scooted closer to me, leaning against my side as she half understood my explanations about the sky. Lying there, I felt something I hadn't felt since coming to this world. Real peace. No burden, no stress. It was actually my first time truly relaxing. And it felt almost too good to be real, because we were lying in the middle of the monster forest at night with no fire, no guards, no protection whatsoever. By any normal standard, spending a night outdoors required a roaring fire, rotating watches, and constant vigilance. Even a Tier 4 warrior wouldn't dare sleep unguarded in the wild. No human could defend against ambush while unconscious. But with Mia here, the forest was eerily quiet. Not just no monsters. Even the usual insect chirps and frog calls had vanished. Every living thing within range had either fled or gone into hiding under her dragon pressure. This, I thought, was the true perk of being a dragon rider. As the night grew colder, I started feeling the chill. I was about to get up and relight the fire when Mia rolled over and curled into my arms like a kitten. Instantly, warmth flowed from her small body into mine, chasing away every bit of cold. Dragon blood ran hot, even in human form. She was basically a living heater. I stopped overthinking it. I wrapped my cloak around both of us and fell asleep holding her. At dawn, I opened my eyes. Mia was still sleeping in my arms, her pink little face glowing in the morning light, her lips twitching, probably dreaming about food. Mia, time to wake up. No. 5 more minutes. I played my trump card. If you don't get up, no breakfast. She shot upright instantly, rubbing her eyes. I'm awake. I want roasted meat. We washed up at the lake. I checked we hadn't left anything behind, and took her hand. Time to head home. Lots to do today, home. Breakfast, she cheered. The wind roared around us again as she carried me back toward Winterfell city at impossible speed. At the manor, Anna was waiting in the courtyard, glancing at the door over and over. Even knowing Mia's identity and my assurance that we'd be safe, she couldn't help worrying. The monster forest's reputation was burned into every person in the kingdom. The moment we walked in, Mia ran to Anna with her hands on her hips, striking her signature proud pose. "Anna, we're back." Anna smiled and patted her head. "Welcome home. Breakfast is ready." "Great. Thanks, Anna." "Lynn, I'm going to eat," and she was gone. I watched her run off, shook my head with a grin, and walked over to Anna. I pulled her into a hug. She held me tight, finally letting the tension drain from her body. I whispered in her ear, teasing, "What's wrong?" "Couldn't sleep without me last night." Her face turned red and she pushed me away gently. "You're terrible." I laughed, took her hand, and headed inside for breakfast. I'd relaxed enough yesterday. Today, there was work to do. The livestock farm was coming together fast. 100 workers were hauling stone, digging foundations, and building walls with real energy. For people who never imagined earning 30 coppers a day just for labor, with meals included, this was the best thing that had ever happened to them. In just a few days, the foundation and outer walls were nearly done, way ahead of my expectations. Barry praised the progress, but kept glancing at me nervously, clearly wanting to say something. I told him to spit it out. He pointed north toward the monster forest. "My lord, isn't this location too dangerous? The forest is only a few dozen kilometers away. If a small beast wave hits, everything we've built will be destroyed." I laughed and patted Mia's head. "Don't worry about safety." Mia immediately puffed out her chest, hands on hips, looking incredibly proud. "Mia will protect the farm. No matter how many big bugs come, I'll chase them all away." Barry stared at her, then at me, completely confused. He'd seen her reshape farmland with magic, but stopping a beast wave, thousands of rampaging monsters, was a completely different thing. Could one little girl really handle that? But seeing my confidence, he swallowed his doubts. I called over old Hank and the other 4 farm employees. They looked like different people compared to a few days ago, still wearing old clothes, but their faces showed purpose instead of fear. Hank reported excitedly that the walls and main building would be finished in 10 days, with the separated pig and chicken areas already planned to my specifications. Then he raised the real problem. "My lord, the building is almost ready, but it's empty. Our families only have a handful of animals." "Not nearly enough?" I turned to Barry. "Go door to door and buy every household's livestock. Remember, we're buying, not seizing. Be polite. No bullying. Pay 20% above normal market price." Barry's jaw dropped again. Nobles usually force purchases at 70 or 80% of value. I was paying extra. He bowed deeply. "On behalf of all the citizens, thank you for your kindness, my lord." Then I told Hank's team their next task. "This afternoon, Logan will bring the black rock boar here. Your job is to breed it with the sows we purchase. I need piglets carrying monster blood." All 5 turned white. Hank's voice shook. "That's a tier 1 monster. If it goes berserk, we can't control it." I smiled calmly. "It's already tamed. It'll behave. But if anything goes wrong, your only job is to get yourselves to safety. Even if it tears down the whole farm, I won't blame any of you." Their fear eased a little, but their confusion only deepened. What kind of lord could tame monsters? That afternoon, I headed to the training grounds on the east side of the city. The old broken-down field had been cleaned up, and over 300 soldiers, veterans and new recruits, were sweating under the summer sun. Hawk marched between the rows, screaming at them to stand straight, stay in line, and thrust their spears together. The veterans were struggling, but holding on. The new recruits were in rough shape. Most had joined for the pay and meals, and their bodies were weak. Everyone missed the old days of easy guard shifts and casual patrols. Now it was 5-kilometer runs at dawn, formation drills, and hundreds of repetitions of shield raises and spear thrusts. But even after just 2 days, I could see real change. Their lines were getting straighter. When Hawk shouted a command, they moved together. Discipline was taking root. When I arrived, Hawk called the troops to attention and they all saluted, still a little rough, but unified. I didn't give them a big speech. I just made simple promises. Their pay, their meals, their family's security, it would only get better. But enemies would come. Monsters, orcs, maybe rival lords. When that happened, these soldiers would be the ones protecting everything we'd built. One bold soldier asked the question everyone was thinking. Why practice boring formations instead of real combat skills? I wasn't angry. I asked Hawk how many untrained men he could beat. 10 easily. 100 with difficulty. That was the problem. This world's wars were decided by powerful individuals. But training a single mid-level warrior took 5 to 10 years. Most of these men would never reach that level. Formation fighting, teamwork, and discipline gave ordinary soldiers their best chance of surviving a real battle. Then I took off my coat, grabbed a wooden spear, and joined the back of the formation like a common recruit. Hawk protested, but I cut him off. If I designed this training, I had to prove I could do it myself. At first the soldiers held back, afraid of bumping into me. But when they saw me running at the front, standing straighter than anyone, thrusting my spear with everything I had, soaked in sweat, but never quitting, something changed. Their pride kicked in. An old sergeant roared that nobody could slack off while their lord was training beside them. All 300 men exploded with energy. By evening I could barely hold my spear. I waved everyone off, grabbed Mia, and started walking home. She'd been watching all afternoon with a puzzled expression. Why do they train so hard? Because they want to stay alive? She looked at me seriously. I'll protect this place, Lynn. I'm really strong. I laughed. I know you will. My days settled into a steady rhythm. Mornings I handled paperwork in my study, meeting with Barry about finances and project updates. I'd visit the fields to discuss irrigation and tool improvements with Gale, then review training results with Hawk and suggest new formations. Sometimes I'd sneak out with Mia to explore the monster forest, searching for more mineral deposits like coal. Under my unusual policies, Winterfell City was transforming. The abandoned farmland was repaired and ready for seeds. Irrigation channels were being dug. The livestock farm outside the north gate had taken shape, already housing chickens, ducks, geese, and pigs. In the barracks, soldiers marched in tighter lines every day, their war cries growing louder. Everything looked promising on the surface, but underneath, a massive pressure weighed on me. In my study, Barry delivered the consumption report. Our grain reserves were nearly gone. The hunting teams brought back some meat and wild vegetables daily, but it wasn't enough. My reforms meant more hired workers, more soldiers, more mouths to feed, and every one of them did heavy labor requiring serious calories. Barry estimated we had 2 days before running out of food completely. I felt the headache coming. The rapid reforms were burning through resources fast, but slowing down wasn't an option. If people started starving or fleeing, everything would collapse. Just hold on a little longer, Barry. By my calculations, Char should be back any day now, right on cue. A guard walked in. My lord, Captain Char has returned. I hurried to the east gate with Barry. There was Char, riding at the front of a convoy. Over a dozen carts loaded to the brim with supplies. His men looked exhausted and dusty, but their eyes were bright. Char dismounted and knelt before me. Mission accomplished, my lord. All supplies purchased and delivered. I patted his shoulder. Welcome back. Well done. I knew how dangerous this trip had been. 10 warriors meant nothing against a large bandit gang or a greedy noble. If this convoy had been lost, my only backup plan was sending Mia to kill a high-tier monster in the forest and selling its core, which would have exposed us to the kingdom's attention far too soon. Fortunately, the worst didn't happen. Then an idea struck me. Don't store these supplies yet. Parade the carts through the city first. Let every citizen see that Winterfell City has plenty of food now. Barry immediately praised the plan. Showing the people we had resources would calm their fears and keep everyone working hard. Soon the wagons rolled through every street. Citizens stared in disbelief, then broke into excited chatter when they learned their lord had purchased all this grain from outside. The worry about future starvation melted away instantly. Char's supplies saved us. The granary was full again, salaries paid on time, and everyone could breathe easy. With the crisis over, I threw myself back into the monster breeding plan. Barry worked fast. Within days, he'd purchased over a dozen sows from the townspeople. They were placed in the new livestock farm, ready to become the Black Rock Boar's companions. I brought Mia to the boar's pen, knowing I had to explain the next step. Even with 2 lifetimes of experience, telling a pure-hearted little dragon girl about animal mating was deeply awkward. I tried keeping it simple. See that big black pig? He's all alone. I want to give him some friends, companions who'll eat and play with him so he won't be lonely. Mia's eyes brightened. Companions? People who eat and play together? Then aren't we companions, Lin? We do that every day? And Anna too. That threw me completely. My relationship with Anna was clear, but with Mia, we weren't exactly friends, not lovers, not pet and owner. We were something in between everything. We're family, I managed. Mia is my family. She stared at me with those innocent golden eyes until I squirmed, then thankfully looked back at the boar. I quickly connected the goal to food. If the boar makes friends with these new pigs, they'll have lots of baby piglets. More piglets means more meat. Endless meat. That did it. Her eyes sparkled. I know what to do. She ran to the pen and spoke to the boar in that deep, ancient dragon language. The boar listened, tilted its massive head, and something clicked in its eyes. What happened next nearly gave me a heart attack. The boar charged straight at the nearest sow and mounted her immediately. Raw, primitive, zero hesitation. I lunged forward, scooped Mia up, and slapped my hand over her eyes in one motion. Lin, what's happening? Why is the big pig on top of the other one? Why are you covering my eyes? My brain scrambled for a clean explanation and failed miserably. You can't watch that. If you look too much, tiny needles grow inside your eyeballs. Very sharp, very uncomfortable. I carried her to the other side of the farm, making sure the wall completely blocked the view, and finally exhaled. After calming down, I took Mia to see the other captured monsters, including a wind antelope. We'd need to buy ewes from the northern fortress later since nobody in the city raised sheep. I had Mia give each monster the same instructions about behaving and cooperating. Looking at the farm stocked with several monster species, I felt genuine excitement. No output yet, but the future was bright. Soon enough, Winterfell City could become the kingdom's premier meat supplier. Mia came running into the courtyard and threw herself into Anna's arms, bragging about helping me at the farm. But then she started asking Anna about companions, babies, and why the boar climbed on top of the sow. I walked in just in time, pressed my hand on Mia's head, and told her to stop asking. She apologized, but her eyes were spinning with curiosity. I couldn't punish her. All I could do was spoil her. I noticed Anna was sweeping the yard again. I took the broom from her hands. You're the lady of this house. You don't need to do this. She smiled softly and said she didn't mind. Aside from tidying rooms and arranging meals, she had nothing else to do. That hit me. Back at the Marquis's mansion, I spent every day with her. Now in Winterfell City, I was busy from morning to night, leaving Anna alone most of the time. Everyone in the manor treated her with respect since they knew she was basically the Lord's woman. But that high status also meant she had no real friends. An idea came to me. Anna, I want you to start helping me with administrative work. She panicked immediately. I'm just a maid. If I make mistakes and ruin your plans, I stopped her. You're the person I trust most. You'd never do anything to hurt me. Look at all those dishes I described. You're the only one who brought them to life, better than I ever could. I'm sure you have talent for governance too. Besides, I'm drowning in work. Without your help, I honestly don't know how I'll manage everything coming next. She hesitated, but seeing how serious I was, she finally agreed. Mia watched us from the side with a strange mix of emotions on her little face. I sent for Barry. When he arrived, I got straight to the point. This is Anna, my most trusted person and my lover. Starting today, she'll assist me with daily administration. Routine matters like supply distribution, labor scheduling, and minor disputes go through her first. Only bring major issues directly to me. Barry's eyes flickered with understanding. He was sharp enough to read between the lines instantly. I wasn't just giving Anna busy work. I was grooming her as the future lady of Winterfell City, building her authority and familiarity with the territory. He straightened up with a warm smile, turned to Anna, and bowed respectfully. Miss Anna, I look forward to working with you. I'll do everything I can to support you. Anna flushed and stammered a polite reply. She'd never received this kind of respect before, not as the overlooked maid of an unwanted marquis's son. I watched the scene with satisfaction. Once I made my position clear, a smart man like Barry knew exactly how to follow. After Barry and Anna exchanged pleasantries, Barry pulled out his notebook and started reporting. The seeds Char brought back had been distributed to the farmers, and Gale had supervised planting using his ridge farming method. Everything was in the ground, but there was a problem. No rain had fallen, and Winterfell City was naturally dry. Mia's earlier transformation kept the soil slightly moist, but without water soon, the seeds wouldn't sprout. Barry also mentioned that Gale's irrigation project had hit trouble and couldn't deliver water yet. I understood immediately. Barry was hinting that we needed Mia to make it rain again. Before I could even ask, Mia puffed out her chest and declared proudly, "Rain again? Easy. Leave it to me." That afternoon, I brought Anna and Mia to the farmland. The place looked completely different from my last visit. Neat rows of planted ridges stretched into the distance. Hundreds of farmers worked hard digging ditches and reinforcing field borders, sweat on their faces but hope in their eyes. Gale rushed over when he saw us. After I introduced Anna's new role, I asked about the water problem. He pointed at the thin stream flowing from the distant Winterfell River and explained that the riverbed sat lower than most of our fields. Water flow was too slow for effective irrigation, and digging deeper channels risked flooding everything, the fields and possibly the city itself. I knew the answer instantly. I crouched down and drew a diagram in the dirt with a stick. What if we build a giant wheel by the river, with buckets attached around the edge? The river's current spins the wheel, lifts water to the top, and dumps it into elevated channels. Continuous water supply without any manual labor, a water wheel. Gale stared at the sketch, frozen. Then his eyes exploded with excitement. This is genius, but his enthusiasm quickly faded. He admitted the concept was beyond anyone's skills here. Building something this complex would require a dwarf craftsman or an alchemist. I was surprised to learn that alchemists weren't just potion makers. They were scholars skilled in mechanical design and device construction. Exactly what I needed. Unfortunately, they were rarer and more expensive than mages. I made a mental note to recruit one when possible. Mia tugged my arm impatiently. "Are you done yet?" I turned to her with a smile. "Winterfell City really can't survive without you, Mia." Her frown vanished instantly, replaced by her signature smug grin. She walked to the field's edge and began chanting. The clear sky darkened in seconds as massive storm clouds gathered. From their center, an enormous water dragon had emerged, then shattered into torrential rain that soaked the freshly planted earth. The hundreds of farmers who'd never witnessed this before dropped their tools in terror, fell to their knees, and started bowing to the sky dragon like it was a god. The water dragon shattered into heavy rain that lasted several minutes, filling every ditch and channel with precious water. When the clouds cleared and sunlight returned, I told Gale the irrigation problem was solved for now and that feeding the city was in his hands. I promised to handle the water wheel and find an alchemist later. A month passed in a blur of constant work, and Winterfell City was unrecognizable. The walls were repaired. The livestock farm echoed with animal calls, many already pregnant. Green shoots pushed through the western fields, swaying in summer breezes. 300 soldiers trained with real discipline, their eyes hard and determined. Citizens walked the streets smiling. They had jobs, food, and money for the first time in memory. But beneath the progress, a new crisis was forming. Late one night in my study, I was sketching a blast furnace design, preparing for iron smelting now that we had coal. Anna walked in with tea and a thick ledger. She'd grown remarkably in 1 month. The shy little maid who knew nothing about governance was now handling daily reports, checking accounts, and managing routine decisions better than I could. She'd become a real administrator. She opened the last page and handed it to me. One look at the numbers made my stomach drop. Salaries, food purchases, construction costs. Everything added up to a devastating total. The gold char brought back, and my personal savings were nearly gone. "We have 597 gold coins and about 1,500 silver left," Anna said quietly. "At current spending, we last 3 months. With your expanding reforms, probably 2 months. Without stable income," she continued, "we'd have to force people to work without pay, like other nobles do. Everything we've built, the trust, the motivation, would collapse overnight." I looked at her with pride. She wasn't just reciting numbers. She understood the bigger picture now. I paced the room, thinking hard. Crops were barely enough to feed ourselves. The livestock farm wouldn't produce returns for 6 to 12 months. Then an idea struck. What if we build a free trade market right here in Winterfell City? Anyone can trade freely under our protection. We take a 10% transaction tax, steady revenue while bringing life to the local economy. I raised another point. We also form a trading company, the Winterfell Trading Guild. We buy local goods, sell them at the Northern Fortress, and bring back products to sell here. Profit both ways. Anna thought it over carefully, then raised a concern. Both will take time to grow. Will the early profits cover our expenses? Smart girl. Maybe not immediately, but it's a direction. You'll lead both projects. Barry will assist you. She hesitated, then nodded firmly. Yes, my lord. Just then, familiar little footsteps came pattering from the hallway. Mia pushed open the door and bounced in. What are you two talking about? I didn't expect her to contribute anything, but I explained our money problem anyway. To my shock, her eyes lit up instantly. Lynn, my sleeping cave has tons of shiny stones. They taste awful, but I think they're worth lots of gold coins. I froze. She explained that whenever she caught monsters to eat, she'd find hard stones inside their bodies. They were gross and hurt her teeth, so she'd pick them out and toss them into a corner of her cave. Hard stones inside monster bodies. Magic cores. Those were incredibly valuable. Our hunting team mostly captured monsters alive now, so we rarely got cores. But Mia was a dragon who'd been eating high-level monsters for centuries. That corner was probably a mountain of treasure. Mia, take me to your cave. I called an emergency meeting that night with Barry, Hawk, and Gale. I handed the market and trading guild projects to Anna with Barry assisting, told everyone she'd handle all decisions while I was gone, and slipped out of the city with Mia. 3 days into the monster forest, I was exhausted. Mia hopped ahead like a happy rabbit while I struggled through steep cliffs, tangled roots, and rushing rivers. Without her scaring off every creature nearby, and my improved fitness from training with the soldiers, I'd never have made it. After climbing another ridge, a hidden valley appeared behind an enormous waterfall. Mia pointed excitedly. We're here. I leaned on my knees, gasping. How did you ever get here before? She giggled mischievously. I flew, obviously. Dragons don't climb mountains. Then it hit me. Then why didn't you fly us here this time? Her golden eyes sparkled with sly amusement. Because this is more fun. If we flew, the trip would be over instantly. You'd go right back to work and wouldn't have time for me. This way, we get to play in the forest together for days. Something soft shifted inside my chest. This long, difficult journey existed only because a lonely little dragon wanted more time with me. I squeezed her hand tighter and kept walking. Somehow the path didn't feel so hard anymore. We passed through the waterfall into a vast cave, more like a hollowed-out mountain. The ceiling stretched impossibly high with faint star-like lights. The floor was perfectly smooth, the air warm and clean. Nothing like the dark, bone-filled lair I'd imagined. Did you clean this place? No. I just cast dragon magic before sleeping and it stays clean. Deeper inside, an underground river flowed crystal clear beside glowing mushrooms and plants bearing gem-like fruit, treasures any alchemist would kill for. At the center sat an enormous bed made of unknown jewels, half the size of a town square, Mia's sleeping spot in dragon form. There it is, Mia cheered, pulling me toward the deepest corner of the cave. A small mountain of glowing, multicolored stones sat there, shimmering in the darkness. When I got close enough to see clearly, my breath caught. These weren't gemstones. They were magic cores, fist-sized, every color imaginable, covering every magical element. Hundreds of them, piled carelessly together. Mia grabbed an ice blue one and handed it to me proudly. These stones, they're super hard and taste terrible. It felt cold in my hand. The energy signature said 4th tier or higher, but the actual power had faded to around 2nd tier. Centuries of sitting here had drained most of them. I started sorting through the pile, pushing aside the completely dead ones and collecting those still glowing. Even degraded cores held serious value. A faded 3rd tier core was still worth far more than a perfect 1st tier one. I stuffed my enormous pack until it was bursting. Actually, the degradation was a blessing. Perfect high-tier cores would attract dangerous attention from greedy nobles. But ancient, partially drained ones? I could claim I'd found a forgotten treasure stash in the monster forest. That happened occasionally. Nobody would suspect anything. Mia and I sat by the lake outside the cave, grinning like idiots. I was happy because our money problems were solved. She was happy because I was happy. Then reality set in. 3 days of brutal hiking to get here meant 3 days back. My body was wrecked. I asked Mia if we could fly home this time. She pouted immediately. No, flying is too fast. I want more days playing with you in the forest. I rubbed my aching shoulders and said half-jokingly that if I had to walk back in this condition, a hidden snake or monster might actually kill me. Her pout vanished instantly, replaced by panic. She jumped up and checked me over for injuries. Once she confirmed I was fine, she sat back down, frowning in thought. Then her eyes lit up with an idea. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm, lowered her head, and bit down hard on my wrist. Pain shot through me. I almost yanked my arm away but stopped myself. Mia would never hurt me on purpose. A massive golden magic circle exploded beneath us, covered in swirling dragon language runes that connected us together. Suddenly, I felt something new deep in my soul, a bond with Mia. I could sense her location, feel her emotions, even call to her mentally. Then raw power erupted inside me. The wall blocking my advancement for years shattered instantly. I broke through from beginner warrior to mid-level warrior. Battle energy I'd never been able to grasp suddenly flowed naturally. And beneath that, an even more terrifying power waited. Mia's power, available whenever I needed it. With it, I could easily kill even a high-level warrior. Mia released my wrist. The bite mark vanished. She grinned proudly. I signed our dragon race's equal contract with you. Now you can borrow my strength. No more worrying about sneak attacks. I stared at my unmarked wrist, then at Mia's proud little face. The kingdom's records mentioned contracts, mages forcing soul brands onto monsters through complex rituals, creating master-servant bonds. But Mia had done something completely different with just a bite. An equal contract, with no records anywhere in the kingdom's history. The power inside me was undeniable. I'd jumped from a talentless beginner warrior straight to mid-level, with battle energy I'd never been able to grasp. And deep down, a terrifying dragon force waited, enough to kill a high-level warrior instantly. Mia, do you understand what you just did? She tilted her head like it was obvious. It's the dragon way of making best friends. So I used it on you. She explained that dragons could only sign one equal contract in their entire life. Once signed, that person became their most important companion forever. She could share her power and sense if I was in danger. Her reason was heartbreakingly simple. She didn't want her best friend to suddenly die. No calculations, no bargaining, just pure love. Guilt hit me like a wave. I'd been manipulating her from the start, luring her with food, trapping her with comfort, treating her as my greatest asset. But she'd only ever seen me as her best friend. That level of trust left me speechless. Thank you, Mia. I'll protect you from now on. She hugged me tight. Mia will protect Lynn too. For the return trip, I refused her offer to fly. Instead, I crouched down and patted my back. This time, I'll carry you. She squealed with delight and climbed on. With my upgraded body, the brutal mountain paths felt effortless now. She rode on my back, laughing and pointing at fruit trees and rabbits, directing me like I was her personal mount. I realized I was probably history's strangest dragon rider. Others soared through the sky on mighty dragons. I was hiking through the woods with a little girl on my back, following her snack-finding orders. But honestly, I'd gotten the better deal. I accepted my fate. Days later, Winterfell City appeared on the horizon. Anna was waiting anxiously at the manor. She checked us both for injuries, then noticed something different about me. Sharper eyes, stronger presence. I flexed proudly. Met a master in the forest. Broke through to mid-level warrior overnight. Her face lit up with joy. I leaned close and whispered that I'd show her exactly how much stronger I'd gotten tonight. She turned crimson, smacked my chest, grabbed Mia's hand, and fled toward the manor. I watched her retreat with the biggest grin on my face. The next morning, everyone gathered in the meeting hall. Anna stood beside me with her report, while Barry, Hawk, Gale, and Logan waited below. Anna went first, summarizing everything that happened while I was gone: military training, irrigation progress, livestock farm completion. Her voice was clear and organized, nothing like the nervous girl she'd been weeks ago. She'd grown faster than I ever expected. She could handle most of a lord's duties on her own now. After hearing all reports, I was satisfied. Winterfell City was running smoothly even without me. Time to solve our biggest problem. I dropped the enormous pack onto the table and untied it. Magic cores of every color spilled across the surface, some rolling onto the floor. The room lit up with multicolored light. Though faded by centuries, even the weakest ones radiated more energy than a first-tier core. A dozen still pulsed at third-tier levels. Barry literally fell over from shock. Hawk and Logan stood frozen. Gale trembled head to toe. To them, this wasn't just a pile of cores. It was a mountain of gold that could buy endless grain, weapons, armor, and magical equipment. I explained it away with a story about a treasure map I'd bought as a child and never believed until desperation drove me to try it. The explanation was flimsy, but nobody could think of a better reason for someone having this many ancient high-tier cores. Once the excitement settled, I started issuing orders. Barry would restart every paused construction project. Build brick kilns so citizens had real houses before winter. Repave roads, build drainage systems. Most importantly, spread word through our trading channels about Winterfell City's low taxes and high wages to attract refugees and oppressed peasants from across the western and northern regions. And start planning a new, larger city. We'd outgrow these walls soon. Gale had to get the water wheel built before autumn harvest, hiring craftsmen from the northern fortress if needed. Keep expanding farmland until we produced enough to sell surplus grain as a trade commodity. Hawk would expand the garrison from 300 to 1,000 soldiers and intensify training. We needed a real army, not just city guards, but a force capable of defending against serious threats or even marching to war. Logan would keep capturing breeding monsters while also purchasing ordinary livestock calves from surrounding areas to expand the farm's base. Finally, I turned to Anna. I told her I had to personally travel to the northern fortress to sell these cores. The value was too high. Mishandling it could bring disaster instead of fortune. While I was gone, she'd be in charge of everything. That night, as I packed for the journey, Mia appeared at my door in pajamas, clutching a little dragon doll Anna had made her, eyes full of worry. "Where are you going?" I explained I needed to sell her tasteless stones at the northern fortress. She immediately demanded to come. I told her no. The fortress was full of people and powerful warriors, maybe even fourth-tier fighters. If someone detected her true nature, it could mean a fight inside the city and bring the whole kingdom down on us. But I'm strong. I'm not scared of them. She grabbed my arm and refused to let go. I understood her fear. Since we'd met, we'd barely been apart except for sleeping. For a dragon who'd spent centuries alone, the thought of being separated again was terrifying. I pulled her into a hug and reminded her about our contract. I raised my wrist. "You can feel me wherever I go, and I can feel you. We're never really apart." Then I gave her something bigger. "I have an important mission that only you can handle. Winterfell City is our home, right? Anna is our family. I'm trusting you to guard both while I'm gone. Only the strongest person can protect our home, and that's you." The sadness melted off her face, replaced by fierce determination. She puffed out her chest. "Leave it to me. I'll protect our home and Anna." Later in our room, Anna asked if she should come with me. I shook my head. I needed her running the city. Nobody else could I trust with that. I told her about Mia's equal contract, how I'd become a dragon rider and gained enormous power. She stared in disbelief until I teased her that she'd already experienced my new strength last night. She turned bright red. The next morning at the east gate, Anna straightened my collar with worried eyes. "Be careful. I'll handle everything here." Mia held my hand tight. "Come back fast, and take me out to play when you do." Her face was serious with her new mission. I hugged them both, then left with Char and 30 guards escorting an ordinary-looking cart hiding a fortune in magic cores. The road grew bleak quickly. We passed our first village, completely abandoned, houses collapsed. Char explained that the villagers couldn't pay their taxes to Count Grey Wolf last year, so he'd enslaved them all as serfs. I stared at the ruins in silence. No matter how long I lived in this world, hearing things like this still made my blood boil. Before, I'd been powerless to change anything. But now things were different. Given enough time, I would change all of this. Along the way to the northern fortress, we passed through villages that were barely surviving. Starving villagers hid inside their crumbling homes the moment they saw armed riders, assuming we were another tax collection squad. At each settlement, I stopped, dismounted, and announced Winterfell City's policies in the simplest words possible. No taxes for 2 years. Farm the land and keep 60%. Work for the Lord's manor and get paid with meals included. I didn't linger or pressure anyone. I just said my piece and rode on, leaving them stunned and skeptical. I didn't know if they believed me or if they'd come, but I knew they'd remember. When starvation or freezing pushed them to the edge, maybe they'd recall that somewhere called Winterfell City promised food and warmth. Every person who chose to come meant one fewer death. After days of travel, the northern fortress finally appeared. A massive black stronghold that took my breath away even though I'd grown up in a marquise mansion. Towering walls, elite soldiers in gleaming armor, merchant caravans streaming through the gates. Compared to my tiny, patched-up Winterfell city walls, the gap was embarrassing. But I felt no shame. I had things no other lord possessed: modern management knowledge and the continent's most powerful dragon. Given time, Winterfell City would match this place, maybe surpass it. At the gate, the crowd parted for our cavalry. Char paid 6 silver coins for entry. The guard captain spotted my baron's crest and waved us through without inspection, all smiles. That was noble privilege. Even the lowest-ranking baron enjoyed treatment commoners couldn't dream of. Inside, pedestrians stepped aside and lowered their heads as we passed. In the Ayla Kingdom, a noble could kill a commoner on the street and settle it with compensation money. After checking into an inn and changing into clean clothes, I headed straight to the Molten Fire trading house with Char and our heavy chest of treasure. The thin, bearded shopkeeper recognized Char immediately and greeted him warmly, offering fair prices as before. Char stepped aside and introduced me as his lord, Baron Lynn Austin of Winterfell City. The shopkeeper's casual smile froze for a moment. His sharp eyes sized me up quickly. I was young, dressed modestly, and only a baron, the lowest noble rank. But he knew better than to disrespect any noble. He bowed deeply and promised his full cooperation. Even backed by the powerful Gold Lion Duke, his shop wouldn't dare offend nobility. I walked to the counter calmly and had Char place the heavy chest down. I opened it and poured the contents out. The shopkeeper Ball stopped breathing. Even someone who handled treasures daily couldn't stay composed facing this. His hands trembled as he picked up the cores. Ice blue from blizzard wolves, crimson from lava lizards, and even a 5th-tier purple lightning eagle core. Then he noticed something off. The purple lightning eagle core still had its pressure signature, but the actual magic power had faded to peak 3rd tier. The 4th-tier cores had dropped to around 2nd tier. He examined everything carefully, nothing below original 3rd-tier quality, with several 5th-tier specimens, all severely drained by time, but still enormously valuable. After quick calculations, Ball looked up at me with a mix of awe and fear. "Where did these come from, my lord?" I stared him down. No explanation would satisfy anyone, so I kept it simple. "Ancient treasure map bought from mercenaries." I said nothing more. Ball chewed on that, considered my territory's location near the monster forest, and mostly believed it. Only a legendary treasure could produce this many high-quality ancient cores at once. He didn't dare push further and called in his best appraiser. The pricing followed standard rates. 1st-tier cores worth 1 to 10 gold, 2nd tier 11 to 100, 3rd tier 101 to 1000. Despite their energy loss, my cores ranked at the top of their current tiers. The final number came out. "My lord, we offer 67,000 gold coins." 67,000. Even prepared for a big number, I went blank for a moment. That was more wealth than many noble families accumulated across generations. The northern fortress itself, a massive trade hub with over 100,000 residents, only collected 20 to 30,000 gold in annual taxes. My single sale was worth more than double their yearly revenue. Then came the awkward part. Ball's face twisted painfully. "My lord, we don't have that much cash. Not this branch, not even our entire regional operation combined." I'd overlooked that. No single merchant house could carry that kind of liquidity. Ball proposed inviting the fortress's other major trading houses to split the purchase. I agreed. The news would spread anyway. Within 30 minutes, the most powerful merchants in the fortress were crowded inside, eyes wide at the glowing pile on the counter. After intense negotiation, all 5 major houses combined to complete the deal. Ball handed me a chest containing Ayla gold notes worth 67,000 gold, redeemable at any Ayla bank across the continent. I pocketed the notes, then pulled out a shopping list I'd prepared in advance. Since all the top merchants were conveniently gathered, I handed it over with a smile. The list covered everything Winterfell City needed: massive quantities of grain, livestock, and construction tools, armor and spears for 1,000 soldiers, advanced alchemy equipment, rare herbs, and magic materials. And one more item. The same third-tier enchanted sword char had sold here weeks ago. The 5 trading houses scrambled to fill my order at their best prices and fastest speed. The sheer decisiveness of the deal made them realize I wasn't the helpless, abandoned noble they'd heard about. Their only complaint was my requirement to deliver everything directly to Winterfell City. Nobody wanted that job, but a purchase worth nearly 10,000 gold coins convinced them all. I was satisfied. Before today, I'd been invisible, a nobody baron that no one cared about. After today, my name would echo across the entire Ayla kingdom. Even after spending 10,000 gold on supplies, I still held over 50,000, enough to transform me from a discarded marquis's son into a rising new baron that everyone would be watching. With the major business handled, I relaxed and explored the fortress with Char. What I didn't see was everything happening behind the scenes. That same night, Marquis Rupert, the lord of the northern fortress, received a report from his spy. A disowned baron had just sold 67,000 gold coins worth of ancient magic cores. The Marquis nearly knocked over his desk standing up. He immediately ordered a full investigation into everything I'd done since arriving in Winterfell City, who I'd met, what I'd built, where the treasure really came from. He couldn't make sense of it. A talentless 18-year-old, dumped in a worthless border town, suddenly producing wealth that would make major nobles jealous. Was the Thunder Marquis secretly backing me? Was the treasure story real? Nothing added up cleanly. Meanwhile, every trading house sent encrypted messages through secret channels to their true masters across the kingdom. The Gold Lion Duke in the south, the Purple Rose Duke in the capital, Marquis Rhodes in the north. Every letter said roughly the same thing. The abandoned son of the Thunder Marquis had appeared with a fortune in ancient cores, origin unknown. The news spread beyond the powerful too. Regular merchants heard whispers. Guards gossiped to relatives. By nightfall, rumors had flooded every tavern and street corner in the fortress. A young noble sold a mountain of high-tier magic cores. 5 trading houses had to combine just to afford it. More than the entire fortress earns in a year, one day. That's all it took. My name, Lynn Austin, went from meaning nothing to being on everyone's lips. Countless eyes, visible and hidden, were now pointed directly at me. I'd known this would happen the moment I opened that chest. The money was necessary for Winterfell City's survival, but the attention it brought was the price I'd have to pay. The next morning, a servant from the city lord's mansion delivered an invitation. Marquis Rupert wanted me at a private dinner that evening. No surprise. Yesterday's deal had clearly caught his attention. I accepted calmly. Inside the city, my noble status was the best protection. No marquis would touch a baron without proper cause, no matter how powerful he was. After sending the servant away, I took Char to explore the fortress's commercial district. At the central square, loud cheering drew us in. A crowd surrounded a magnificent horse, taller and more muscular than any normal steed, covered in fiery red fur, proudly tossing its head and stomping its hooves. A dragon-blood horse, Char whispered, awestruck. Though only a Tier 1 monster, the faint trace of dragon blood in its veins made it nearly impossible to tame, rarer and more valuable than many second-tier monsters. A merchant was running a scheme, 1 gold coin per attempt. Tame the horse and keep it for free. Warrior after warrior climbed on, only to be thrown off within seconds. Mid-level warriors, high-level warriors, none lasted half a minute. The merchant's money bag grew fatter with every failure. My eyes locked onto that horse. Even if I didn't ride it myself, bringing it back as a breeding stallion could eventually produce an elite cavalry force for Winterfell City. I stepped forward, tossed a gold coin into the bag, and mounted. The dragon blood horse exploded into violent bucking, twisting with terrifying force. I finally understood why everyone failed. There was simply no way to hold on against this kind of raw power. Then something unexpected happened. The dragon force I'd received from Mia's contract stirred inside me, drawn out by the horse's faint dragon bloodline. A wisp of that power leaked from my body. The horse froze mid-buck. Its entire body went rigid. Then its proud head slowly lowered in submission. The roaring crowd fell completely silent. I tested it. Walk forward. It obeyed instantly. Circle the arena. It trotted around perfectly, gentle as a lamb. The merchant's face crumbled. He'd been collecting gold coins all day from failed challengers. never expecting anyone to actually succeed. But a deal was a deal. Congratulations, my lord. What's your name? Lynn Austin. Lord of Winterfell City. His jaw dropped. Every merchant in the fortress had heard about yesterday's massive sale. Now that same rising baron had just tamed an untamable horse in front of hundreds of witnesses. I ignored the envious stares, took the reins of my new dragon blood horse, and walked casually out of the square. After stabling my new dragon blood horse at the inn, I headed to the dirtiest part of the fortress, the slave market. The Ayla kingdom didn't officially practice slavery against its own people. Bankrupt or criminal citizens became serfs at worst, unfree but still treated as human. But the slave trade thrived anyway, selling captured foreigners, war prisoners, and kidnapped civilians from enemy nations. Beast folk, dwarfs, sometimes even rare elves. Border conflicts never stopped, and captured foreigners either got ransomed home or ended up here as cheap goods. My goal was clear. Since I couldn't recruit skilled professionals through normal channels yet, maybe the slave market held hidden talent, people with valuable abilities who'd ended up in chains through bad luck. The fat, jewel-covered owner named Fatty Fox Jolie nearly tripped over himself when he learned I was the baron who'd made yesterday's massive deal. He saw me as a walking goldmine. Inside, the stench of blood and sweat hit me immediately. Iron cages lined the corridors, packed with shackled, hollow-eyed slaves. Buyers inspected them like livestock, some cracking whips to test obedience. Jolie led me to a private section, a decorated room holding young beast folk girls. Cat-eared beauties, dog tribe girls with fluffy tails, defiant little fox tribe maidens. All clean, well-dressed, and according to Jolie, untouched. Cut it out, I said coldly, stopping his disgusting sales pitch. They were attractive, I'll admit, but I wasn't here for personal pleasure. I was here for Winterfell City. I need skilled slaves. Dwarf miners, beast folk farmers, anyone who knows alchemy or magic. Special abilities only. Jolie's smile flickered but recovered instantly. He rushed me to another room where the atmosphere was completely different. Fewer slaves, but their eyes held defiance instead of emptiness. I spotted several stocky, bearded dwarves and a massive, bull-headed beast man. Jolie rattled off their qualifications. Experienced miners who knew basic smithing, a minotaur farmer with incredible strength. Then my eyes drifted to isolated cages in the back. One held a gaunt foxman with strange marks on his fingers. The other contained a young, rabbit-eared girl whose eyes darted around with fear. That foxman claims to be a beginner alchemist, Jolie said eagerly. And that rabbit girl has magical talent, a mage apprentice. Train her up, and she could become powerful, an alchemist and a magic apprentice. Exactly what Winterfell City desperately needed. After quick verification, I didn't hesitate. I pointed at everyone in the room. I'll take them all. Jolie nearly choked. The slaves looked up too, but not with relief. Their eyes burned with hatred and resentment, glaring at both me and their seller. Jolie reminded me that every slave wore an explosive collar controlled by a command word. He warned me to stay careful. Plenty of owners got killed by their own slaves each year. I wasn't worried. Once these people saw how Winterfell City actually worked, their hatred would fade on its own. I paid nearly 1,000 gold coins. As Jolie brought out my purchases, he also presented a beautiful fox tribe girl in chains as a free gift, freshly captured, untouched. I almost refused, but then reconsidered. A young, wealthy noble showing zero interest in beautiful women would look suspicious. Better to just accept. Meanwhile, back in Winterfell City, Mia was miserable without me. Day 1, she missed me. Day 2, she missed me and my cooking. Day 3, still missing me. She wandered everywhere looking for entertainment. She visited the growing wheat fields outside the city, pretty but boring after 5 minutes. She checked the livestock farm, now filling up with pigs, sheep, and cattle. She swallowed hard at all that future meat. She accidentally watched the Black Rock board doing its breeding duties, felt her face go hot remembering what I'd told her, and ran away. She tried the monster forest, but every creature fled the moment it sensed her. Not even a single playmate. Finally, she dragged herself back to find Anna. But Anna was buried in work with Barry, planning new housing districts over a city map. Just a little longer, Mia. I have important things to finish. Mia had no choice but to wander alone again. Because while I was away, something remarkable had happened. Refugees started arriving, slowly at first, desperate people from dying villages who'd heard about Winterfell City's promises. When they found that the promises were real, actual food, actual wages, actual fair treatment, they exploded with joy and sent word back to their families. My roadside announcements, Barry's hired merchants spreading rumors in taverns, word of mouth from grateful newcomers, it all combined into a wave. Winterfell City's reputation as a paradise for common folks spread like wildfire among the lowest classes. This infuriated neighboring nobles. Count Grey Wolf discovered over 50 serfs had fled his territory toward Winterfell City. He slammed his sword on the table, ordered roads blockaded, demanded runaways be publicly hanged as examples, and spread lies that I was bankrupt and luring people as cannon fodder against orcs. Other nobles reacted the same way, tightening patrols, threatening their own people, even hiring mercenary gangs to deal with me. They all still thought Winterfell City was weak, and I was an easy target. They had no idea what was coming. When I led my group of newly purchased slaves back to the inn, the whole street stopped to stare. Word spread instantly across the fortress. People called me the treasure baron, mocking how I'd rushed to spend my fortune at the slave market the moment I got rich. Merchants sneered over drinks about my new money mentality. Mercenaries predicted I'd be broke within months. I didn't care. In fact, I was pleased. This was exactly what I wanted. Winterfell City sat in the most dangerous, forgotten corner of the kingdom. No merchant would voluntarily travel there under normal circumstances. Without trade, we'd never grow. So I needed to send one loud, unmistakable message across the entire western and northern regions. Winterfell City's lord is filthy rich and loves spending money. Call me a fool, call me wasteful, it didn't matter. Once Winterfell City has money planted itself in every merchant's brain, they'd eventually come chasing profit. And when they arrived, they'd discover something unexpected, a place with no ridiculous taxes, citizens with real purchasing power, and fair treatment for everyone. Once that reputation spread, commerce would flow naturally. My long-term vision was bigger. Winterfell City looked cursed, enemies on 3 sides. But flip the perspective, and it sat at the crossroads of 3 major powers. If I could prove the city was both safe and wealthy, it could become a continental trade hub. Adventurers heading into the monster forest would resupply here. Human-beast folk trade would find safe ground here. Wealth and talent would pour in on their own. Back at the inn, I gathered the slaves in the courtyard. Char gave them food and water. Their eyes showed every shade of misery, emptiness, hatred, fear. They expected the worst. I spoke plainly. I know you don't trust human nobles. You think you'll be worked to death or treated as toys. But that's not why I bought you. In my territory, even slaves can earn back their freedom. I explained that Winterfell City needed their skills: mining, farming, alchemy, magic. They'd work as regular citizens, earn wages, and once their contributions matched what I'd paid for them, they'd be free. Silence filled the courtyard. Some eyes softened from hatred to disbelief. The young dwarf miners exchanged hopeful glances. The terrified rabbit-eared girl looked up at me like she was dreaming. Not everyone believed me. The foxman alchemist smirked coldly and looked away. Some older dwarves stayed stubbornly skeptical. That was fine. Words meant nothing yet. Once they reached Winterfell City and saw the truth for themselves, they'd understand. I left guards watching them and returned to my room, exhausted from days of travel and scheming. But when I pushed open the door, I froze mid-step. When I opened my door, a figure stood waiting in the soft glow of a magic crystal lamp. It was the fox tribe girl Jolie had given me. She'd changed into a clean maid's uniform, simple but unable to hide her stunning figure. Brown hair falling behind her, a pair of trembling fox ears on top of her head, and a fluffy tail swaying nervously behind her. She clutched the hem of her clothes, eyes full of fear. "Master, please let me serve you." I studied her quietly. Beast folk were fascinating. Some had full beast heads on human bodies, like minotaurs and wolf men, built for war. Others, like this fox girl, looked almost entirely human except for adorable animal ears and a tail. Not much combat power, but absolutely beautiful by human standards. She was terrified yet somehow enchanting. A special scent, those trembling ears, that tail, everything about her made you want to hold her close. But I wasn't like other nobles. I controlled myself. I almost sent her away, but reconsidered. She had no way to protect herself. Making her work for her freedom alongside the others seemed cruel. And honestly, without Anna these past days, I'd realized how helpless I'd become. Anna had spoiled me completely: clothes, meals, daily routines. My past life's independence had evaporated. With Anna taking on more political duties, I genuinely needed a new personal mate. This fox girl was perfect. Beautiful, fox-eared, and fox tribe members were known for being clever and perceptive. "What's your name?" She flinched. Fina. Fina. "You'll be my personal maid from now on. Go rest tonight, and come find me tomorrow." She stared at me blankly, lips parting but no words coming out. Her new master hadn't tried to touch her. He was gentler than anyone she'd expected. Despite my telling her to rest, Fina stubbornly stayed and helped me dress for the evening. A black noble's formal suit for the Marquis's dinner. Having proper help with the complicated outfit made a real difference. I looked in the mirror, young but sharper than most my age. Satisfactory. With Char and 4 elite guards escorting me, I rode a rented carriage to Marquis Rupert's estate, a fortress within the fortress perched on the highest ground. Armed sentries lined the walls. Inside waited enormous gardens, a central fountain, and a brilliantly lit main hall filled with string music and aristocratic laughter. Crystal chandeliers turned the banquet hall bright as daylight. Nobles clustered in groups, swirling wine glasses, smiling elegantly, while their eyes calculated coldly. Noblewomen in jeweled gowns sized up every young man present. The moment I appeared in the doorway, the hall went silent. Every eye turned to me. Whispers erupted. "That's the treasure baron from Winterfell City. He's younger and more handsome than I imagined. They say he could buy half the city." Within seconds, a swarm of nobles and merchants surrounded me, wine glasses raised, smiles plastered on their faces. The moment I entered the banquet hall, merchants and nobles swarmed me. Everyone wanted to be my friend. Trade offers, treasure questions, partnership proposals, they came nonstop. I smiled politely, confirmed nothing about the treasure, but talked freely about Winterfell City's needs and future plans. Several sharp people caught on. I was using this party to advertise that Winterfell City had money and was open for business. Then a pretty girl in a purple dress appeared. Marquis Rupert's youngest daughter, Chris. She asked me to dance. I figured this was probably a honey trap, but refusing would be rude. She was genuinely beautiful, and I held her waist and hand through one elegant waltz. A younger noble might have lost his head, but I'd lived 2 lives and survived Photoshop beauties in my previous one. This wasn't going to shake me. After dancing with a few more ladies, I excused myself and went back to networking. Near the end of the evening, the crowd parted. Marquis Rupert himself walked up, smiling warmly. He invited me to his private study for a chat. Inside, he poured expensive elven wine and played friendly, calling my father foolish for sending me to such a dangerous place, praising my resilience. Then he got to the point. A sudden fortune is both opportunity and danger. You're alone in Winterfell City with no allies. You can't protect that wealth by yourself. He paused. My daughter Chris is 16, beautiful and intelligent. Marry her, become my son-in-law, and nobody in the western region will dare touch you. I saw right through it. One daughter in exchange for tens of thousands in gold. A fantastic deal for him. Marriage would chain me and my treasure to the Rupert family permanently. I set down my glass calmly. I'm grateful for the offer, but marriage must be decided by my parents. I can't agree on my own. His smile froze. My answer sounded respectful, but was clearly a rejection. His tone turned cold. Don't refuse too quickly. The right choice saves you trouble. I control the West. Even your father can't match me here. I didn't flinch. He could threaten all he wanted, but he wouldn't dare harm me inside his own city. The news of my wealth had spread everywhere. If anything happened to me in his mansion, his reputation would be destroyed forever. No merchant would ever trust the Rupert family again. Finally, he laughed it off, pretending nothing happened. We drank and I left. But I knew the damage was done. I'd made an enemy. After I walked out, he surely dropped his mask and started planning. He wouldn't touch me inside the fortress. But once I left these walls, a convenient bandit attack or monster ambush could easily be arranged with no connection back to him. On the carriage ride back to the inn, my mind was already racing. The confrontation with the Marquis confirmed what I'd expected. Danger was closing in. But everything was still within my plan. My goals in the northern fortress were accomplished. Through my deliberate, reckless spending, I'd planted 2 messages across the entire city. First, Winterfell City's lord was rich and generous. Second, Winterfell City needed everything: food, weapons, livestock, workers. These messages would spread with every departing merchant and mercenary, reaching the entire western and northern regions. Hungry traders would come chasing profit. Desperate refugees would come chasing hope. The only remaining problem was getting out alive. The fortress protected me for now. Rupert wouldn't let anything happen inside his own walls. But the moment I stepped outside, I'd become a walking gold bar surrounded by wolves. Bandits, mercenaries, greedy nobles, all waiting. But was I really as helpless as they thought? I smiled coldly to myself. Back at the inn, I gathered Char and all the guards. Plans have changed. Tomorrow morning, take every guard, all the slaves, and all the supplies. Leave through the north gate with as much noise as possible. Head straight for Winterfell City. Char protested immediately. Leaving me alone was too dangerous. I told him not to worry. Nobody would touch me inside the city. I'd publicly announced that I wouldn't leave until they arrived safely. That meant anyone wanting to ambush me would actually need Char's convoy to reach Winterfell City first. They might even secretly protect it just to lure me out. Char started understanding, but asked how I'd eventually leave. I shook my head. Bringing soldiers from Winterfell City wouldn't help. The temptation was too great. I needed to make these people afraid. I had my own method. After everyone left to prepare, I opened my door to find Fina had drawn a perfect bath. Warm water with flower petals, clean clothes folded neatly. Her fox ears were flushed pink as she offered to wash my back. The lamplight, her shy movements, the trembling ears, that swaying tail. I understood now why Fox tribe women were legendary. Even after 2 lifetimes, my resolve nearly cracked. But tomorrow was too important for distractions. I sent her to bed. At dawn, Char's convoy departed loudly through the streets under countless watching eyes. Once they disappeared, I strolled casually toward the Ayla Bank, the most visible building in the fortress. Thanks to my dragon-enhanced senses, I could feel the tension immediately. Behind tea-house windows, in alley shadows, under rooftop tiles, dozens of hidden eyes tracked my every step. They were trying to determine one thing. Was the fortune with me or with Char? My job was to give them a clear answer. I walked straight into the Ayla Bank, one of the safest buildings in the city, backed by the kingdom itself, with guards in enchanted armor at the door. A well-dressed manager greeted me. I told him I needed to exchange gold coins and pulled out my stack of gold notes. His eyes went wide and he offered a private room. I refused. The main hall is fine. He was confused about why I'd handle such valuable business in public, but he couldn't argue with a customer. An elderly bank director personally brought me tea. I spread all 60,000 plus gold coins worth of notes across the table, every one made of special magic paper with unique energy signatures. The tension in the room spiked instantly. I casually pulled out the smallest note and slid it forward. Verify these are real and exchange 100 gold coins for me. The director scanned them with a magic crystal, confirmed everything, and handed over the coins. I'd accomplished exactly what I needed. Every hidden watcher in the building now knew the entire fortune was still on me. Not with Char. Walking out, I felt at least half the surveillance eyes peel away, rushing to report back to their masters. I smiled. My plan was working perfectly. By proving the money stayed with me, I'd removed all pressure from Char's convoy. His group was carrying slaves and ordinary supplies worth maybe 1,000 gold. Pocket change compared to what I was holding. Nobody would waste their cover attacking him for scraps when the real prize was still here. What I couldn't see but knew was happening. Every powerful player in the fortress was repositioning. Marquis Rupert laughed at my foolishness for keeping everything on my person. He ordered his shadow assassins to prepare for when I left the city. As long as I died outside his walls, his hands stayed clean. Count Houston, another local noble, pulled all his men back from tracking Char and refocused entirely on me. He called me stupid for playing games I couldn't win. Even the Bloodblade mercenary gang debated their options. One scarred thug suggested killing me inside the city. Their leader slapped him. Rupert was actively protecting me within the walls. Not out of kindness, but because if I died here, the gold notes would go back to my father and Rupert would get nothing. Keeping me alive until I left was in everyone's interest. Every faction reached the same conclusion. All scattered forces converged back toward me. In their eyes, I wasn't a person anymore. I was a treasure chest waiting to be cracked open. They just needed me to walk out those gates. They all thought I was a naive young baron playing tricks beyond my ability. They had no idea what was really coming. Meanwhile, Char led the convoy toward the city gate. He could feel hostile eyes tracking them from every shadow, predators watching prey. His hand never left his sword. 30 guards were Winterfell City's entire elite force, but here they were nothing. Any decent mercenary band could swallow them whole. Then, just before reaching the gate, every threatening presence vanished in seconds. Char understood immediately. I'd made my move, pulling all attention onto myself. A wave of emotion hit him. He'd never imagined a noble would deliberately put himself in the most dangerous position to protect his subordinates. For a moment, he wanted to turn back and guard me. But then he remembered Mia, that proud little girl standing with hands on hips. As long as she existed, I'd be fine. His only job now was getting back to Winterfell City and contacting her as fast as possible. Everyone, double speed. We're getting home now, he shouted. The convoy burst through the gates and raced toward Winterfell City. With Char safely away, I relaxed and continued exploring the fortress like a tourist, ignoring every shadow trailing me. I came across a building glowing with blue magical light, a massive energy crystal floating above its tower, the Mages Guild. Inside was quiet and cold. Robed mages walked past, barely glancing at me. I approached the service desk, stated my identity and purpose. A senior mage named Marcus came out wearing a deep blue robe with a 3-ring insignia. He assumed I wanted to hire combat mages for protection. I shook my head. I'm here to recruit mages willing to relocate to my territory. His smile stiffened but recovered. Of course. What type do you need? Earth and water mages. People who can cast soil-loosening spells, rain spells, wall-building spells. I want them to help with farmland development and irrigation projects. Marcus's expression turned ice cold. The warmth disappeared entirely, replaced by open arrogance. Perhaps the Baron misunderstands our profession. We are mages. Our arcane power exists to explore truth and defeat enemies on battlefields, not to play in mud and water crops. Several nearby mages laughed openly. If I hadn't been nobility, they'd probably have thrown me out. I sighed internally. Even with money, I couldn't change this world's stubborn prejudice against practical magic. Same attitude my father had. Same attitude everywhere. I understand. I stood calmly, nodded politely to Marcus, and left without argument. If I couldn't recruit trained mages, I'd raise my own. The image of that rabbit-eared apprentice girl flashed through my mind. A bold new idea began forming. I spent the rest of my days wandering the city, visiting alchemy shops, weapon stores, gathering information. My watchers followed me everywhere, reporting back to confused nobles who couldn't figure out what I was planning. Their frustration was quietly satisfying. After days of hard riding, Char's convoy finally reached Winterfell City. Anna, Barry, and Hawk rushed to the gate, expecting to see me. When they realized I wasn't there, their faces fell. Anna demanded answers first. Char explained everything. The massive sail, the fortress full of enemies, and my plan to use myself as bait so they could escape safely. The reaction was immediate chaos. Barry panicked, pacing in circles, suggesting we write to my father for help or give away half the fortune. Hawk drew his sword and declared he'd march the entire garrison to rescue me, even if every soldier died trying. Then Anna silenced everyone. Her usually gentle eyes turned hard as steel. 300 soldiers can't even get through the fortress gates. Letters would arrive too late. Calm down. I have a plan. She headed straight for the manor to find Mia. Char followed, understanding instantly. But when they searched every room, Mia was gone. A servant nervously explained that the moment Mia heard Char's group had returned without me, she ran out of the city alone. The gate guards confirmed she'd left, and nobody had stopped the Lord's sister. Char went white, slumping against the wall. It's over. She's gone. Who's going to save him now? Anna felt a flash of panic too. But then my words came flooding back. Everything I'd told her privately before leaving. Mia wasn't stupid. She was adorably simple. We'd signed an equal contract. We shared a soul connection. Everything clicked. Anna's composure returned completely. Char, relax. Mia didn't run away. If I'm right, Lynn arranged this beforehand. The moment you arrived safely, Mia headed straight to him. She's not lost. She's the rescue plan. She gathered everyone again and told them to trust me. He never acts without a backup plan. He'll be home soon. Her absolute confidence settled the room. Everyone knew Anna's fate was completely tied to mine. If she believed I was safe, then I was safe. Meanwhile, inside my head, I could hear Mia's voice chattering through our contract bond, complaining nonstop about how boring everything had been, how nobody played with her, how she missed my cooking. I smiled, picturing her tiny figure sprinting toward the fortress with a grumpy little frown. I missed her too. Without my little ball of sunshine, these past weeks had felt strangely hollow. Her laughter, her weird questions, her constant presence. I'd taken it all for granted until it was gone. Half a month apart, and the emptiness surprised me. Thankfully, our equal contract meant she'd always find her way back to me. My adorable secret weapon was already on her way. The news of my treasure sale spread across the entire Ayla kingdom like wildfire. Magic messages, carrier ravens, merchant gossip. Every noble in the country was talking about Lynn Austin, the Thunder Marquis's abandoned son who struck it rich overnight. What I didn't know at the time was how my own family was reacting. Back at the Austin family castle, my father, the Thunder Marquis, Barton Austin, sat in his study surrounded by portraits of our ancestors and their battle honors. Our family were military nobles, obsessed with warrior glory and tradition. That's exactly why they'd thrown me out. My ideas about improving agriculture and treating peasants fairly were considered heresy. My two older brothers stood before our father. Cain, the eldest at 25, was a powerful high-level warrior and the chosen heir, arrogant and simple-minded. Bryce, 22, was weaker in combat but cunning with people, well-connected among the capital's elite. Both were practically drooling over my fortune. Cain wanted to send soldiers to drag me back immediately. Father slammed the table and called him an idiot. I was a royally appointed baron now. Attacking me with private troops would brand the family as traitors. Bryce offered a smoother plan. Use family bonds. Claim concern for my well-being in that dangerous border town. Lure me home with promises of a better territory, then seize everything once I returned. Father approved instantly. He saw my 67,000 gold coins as his ticket to a dukedom. He never once considered whether I'd agree. Never wondered what that money meant for Winterfell City's people. In his eyes, everything I owned, including my life, belonged to the Austin family. Cain was ordered to ride for Winterfell City with elite soldiers. Bryce would prepare the official documents. Meanwhile, outside the northern fortress, mercenary bands hired by various nobles were growing restless. One group had been hiding behind rocks along the road for days, waiting for me to leave. Their men complained about the cold and the lousy pay, just 500 gold coins for dozens of fighters sitting in the wilderness. Some suggested I was too scared to leave. Others proposed abandoning the ambush entirely and raiding Winterfell City instead, figuring a broken border town would have no real defenses and might even hide more treasure. The wolves were circling. From every direction now, my own family scheming to steal my wealth through fake kindness, a marquis planning highway murder, local nobles hiring killers, and mercenary gangs eyeing my unprotected home. None of them knew about Mia. While mercenary groups argued about whether to keep waiting or attack Winterfell City instead, a streak of pink light flashed across the sky above them without warning. What was that? Their one-eyed leader snapped his head up, but the sky was already empty. His men trembled, swearing they'd seen something. He told them they were imagining things, but unease gnawed at his gut. In another hidden valley, a noble's private soldiers experienced the same thing. Their mage went pale, stammering that he'd sensed a magical force at least 100 times stronger than his own, archmage level at minimum. The captain demanded answers, but the mage had none. He was only mid-level and couldn't identify what had passed overhead. Similar scenes played out at every ambush point between the fortress and Winterfell City. Assassins, mercenaries, soldiers, they all caught either the pink flash or the terrifying magical aftershock. But it came and went too fast for anyone to understand. Back at my inn stable, I was petting my dragon blood horse when Mia's cheerful voice rang inside my head through our contract bond. Lynn, I'm near you. There's a huge castle ahead. Should I smash my way in? I stopped her immediately. No. Wait outside. I'm coming to you. Were you careful? Did anyone see you? Relax. I flew really high like you said. Nobody could see me. It's so boring here with no people around. I rubbed my temples. Through our soul link, I could feel her presence just outside the fortress walls. Char had only reached Winterfell City half a day ago. The distance between the two cities was hundreds of kilometers, a trip that took me days on horseback. Mia had covered it in under half a day. She'd clearly ignored my instructions to fly slowly and stay hidden. She'd locked onto my location and blasted straight here at full speed in a direct line, probably leaving a trail of terrified ambushers wondering what just passed overhead. Too late to worry about that now. Time to move. I mounted Red Hair and patted his neck. Listen up. When you meet Mia, you'd better hold it together. If you collapse from fear at the worst possible moment, I'm leaving you behind. He reared up with a fierce whinny, as if accepting the challenge. I kicked his flanks. Go. He exploded out of the stable toward the north gate. Instantly, the entire fortress's intelligence network lit up. Target is moving, heading north on horseback. The fish is leaving. Notify everyone. Marquis Rupert exhaled with relief. My prolonged stay had been drawing too many rival factions into his city, threatening his control. He gave his final order. The moment I passed through the gates, anything that happened was no longer his problem. His men were to follow and secure those gold notes by any means necessary. The hunt was on, and every wolf was running. I rode straight through the north gate without slowing down, every hidden watcher tracking my exit. The moment I disappeared over the horizon, shadows peeled away from the walls and followed. On a tree branch beside the road, a small pink figure sat swinging her legs, sighing like the world had wronged her. Then her golden eyes locked onto me, and she launched off the branch like a pink comet. Red Hair felt her first. He jolted to a stop, stomping and whinnying in panic. Before I could calm him, Mia slammed into my chest at full speed, nearly knocking me off the saddle. I caught her tight, breathing in that familiar warmth. If you hit me any harder, you'll send me flying back into the fortress. She nuzzled against me, then noticed Red Hair trembling beneath us. What's this big red thing? Surprisingly, Red Hair hadn't collapsed like normal horses did around Mia. He was terrified but still standing. I patted his neck and told him she was a friend. Mia stroked his mane and said sweetly, "Don't worry, Red Horsey. I won't eat you." Somehow, between the two of us, he calmed down. I lifted Mia onto the saddle in front of me, and we took off again. She immediately started complaining. "You're so mean, leaving without me. I was bored for days. Anna was too busy to play. And now you drag me all the way here without even letting me explore the city." I laughed and asked how she'd traveled here. Her smile froze. Her eyes darted around nervously. Then she pointed ahead and shouted, "Look, those trees are so pretty." That confirmed it. She'd definitely ignored my instructions and flown here at maximum speed in a straight line. I patted her head and let it go. Then I glanced behind us at the seemingly empty wilderness, knowing it was anything but. I spoke softly into Mia's ear. "Some bad people are following us. They want to kill me and take my money. When they show up, take them out. Don't let a single one escape." Her boredom vanished instantly. She rolled up her little sleeves, eyes blazing with excitement. "Fighting? Leave it to me." Minutes later, armed soldiers burst from the tree line on both sides, charging silently with drawn blades. I stayed steady on Red Hair and simply called Mia's name. She began chanting ancient syllables. A massive fireball, over 10 meters wide, materialized above the attackers like a miniature sun. They looked up and saw death. One voice screamed to run. Too late. The explosion swallowed everything. A deafening blast, a wall of fire, a shockwave that launched dirt, stone, and bodies into the air. When it ended, nothing remained but a smoking black crater. Not one attacker survived long enough to scream. Mia clapped her hands clean and beamed up at me. "Done." I patted her head and glanced at the smoking crater. No guilt. This was a world where the strong devoured the weak. These people came to kill me, so they got what they deserved. I wasn't a saint, and I wouldn't pretend to be one. Let's keep moving. I didn't bother hiding or taking side roads. I rode straight down the main path toward Winterfell City with Mia sitting comfortably in front of me. My thinking was simple. If these people wanted my life and money, let them all come. Only by crushing everyone at once could I end this permanently. Running home quietly would just invite future attacks. The next ambush came at a narrow mountain pass. The Bloodblade mercenary gang had positioned over 100 experienced fighters on both cliff walls, armed with armor-piercing arrows that could trouble even high-level warriors. Their one-eyed leader screamed the order to fire. But just before the first volley launched, a gentle breeze appeared in the valley, then instantly transformed into a terrifying hurricane. Visible green wind currents spiraled through the pass, carving grooves into solid rock. The arrows flew and hit an invisible wall, scattering uselessly in every direction. The leader started screaming about a hidden archmage, but it was already too late. Compressed wind blades swept across both cliff faces like death's own scythes, cutting through stone and flesh equally. Leather armor might as well have been paper. Within moments, the screaming stopped completely. When I rode through the valley, deep slash marks covered the walls alongside scattered remains. My stomach churned at the sight. Mia sat in front of me, smiling innocently. Dragon power was genuinely terrifying, even in human form. And she had zero hesitation about killing. When I said eliminate them all, she simply did it. No pause, no mercy. To a dragon, humans and monsters were probably the same thing. The third ambush was the most serious. 50 heavy cavalry knights in full-plate armor blocked an open plain. Every rider radiated battle energy. All mid-level warriors, led by a high-level warrior with an enchanted lance. This kind of elite unit required at least a count's resources to maintain. Their commander pointed his lance at me. "Hand over your fortune, and I'll grant you a dignified death." I looked down at Mia. "Your turn." This time she didn't even bother with spells. She simply opened her little mouth and roared. It sounded childish, but the dragon pressure that erupted from her body hit like a tsunami. Every knight and every warhorse froze mid-charge. Then the horses collapsed like dominoes, crashing their armored riders to the ground. Heavy cavalry without horses lost half their combat power instantly. The result was the same as before. One dragon spell later, not a single knight remained alive. I rode through the scattered bodies without ever drawing my sword.